Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, ma'am. Dr. Chase.
Present.
Ms. Decatur.
Here.
Ms. Egan.
Here.
Ms. Hazard.
Here.
Ms. Healy.
Here.
Mr. McCosker.
Here.
Ms. Young.
Presente.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Present. Colors.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order. Colors. Ready. Trim. Ready. Cut. Fall out.
Trish, before or after recognitions? Before or after recognitions?
Before we talk about the approval of the agenda, I want to thank the Joint Color Guard from North Stafford High School, Colonial Forge High School, Mountain View High School, and Brook Point High School. It's the first time I can remember that we had, a joint color guard, so thank you all very much for coming. We have cadets Sage, Swartz, Regling, Gibson, Brown, Scott, Schrader, and Gilly. And we, of course, thank all their leaders, which include Colonel Catherine Bacon and Master Sergeant Juan Mendoza. Now, there must be more than that if there's 4. So those are the names that are on my list. We thank all of the instructors for the JROTC and for all the work that you do with our students. Thank you. Ms. Hazard, do you have a motion for the approval of the agenda?
Yes, I have a motion to approve the agenda, but I would like to amend it to move consent items, which is currently now section 9 on the agenda. If we could move the consent agenda to after awards, or would you prefer it before?
Yeah.
Let's do it after our awards and recognitions, making it before our staff reports, currently at number 5, to make that number 5.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion for approval of an amended agenda and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. All right, that brings us to awards and recognitions. We have a proclamation for student Alex Goshorn. Ms. Hauser, would you like to read this for us?
Sure, I was wondering if Alex and his scoutmaster, Mr. Tim Mance, could come forward while we read that. Come on forward, Alex. All right, I'd like to stand right there so everybody can see you. And get a good picture, which is the good thing. Mom wants you to smile. This is a proclamation to recognize Alex Goshorn, whereas Alex Goshorn is a Life Scout with Boy Scout Troop 516 and a freshman attending Colonial Forge High School, and is a part of the STAT engineering program at North Stafford High School. And whereas, as part of Alex's requirements to attain the rank of Eagle Scout, he decided to execute a project that would utilize his engineering skills and support Stafford County Public Schools. And whereas Hartwood Elementary School has an outdoor nature trail, and Potawatomi Village, also constructed by an Eagle Scout candidate in the past, which was used to enhance outdoor learning experiences that allows for hands-on learning. And whereas Alex decided to build a footbridge to enhance and provide better access to the Hartwood Elementary School Nature Trail and Potawatomi Village area. And whereas Alex coordinated all aspects of this building project, including writing the proposal, drafting blueprints, getting necessary approvals, obtaining funding, and coordinating and leading the volunteers to complete the work on the footbridge project. Whereas on October 6, 2018, Alex coordinated over 20 volunteers to complete the footbridge project. And whereas Alex's commitment to enhancing the learning environment in Stafford County Public Schools through his Eagle Scout project is to be commended and recognized. So now therefore be it proclaimed that the Stafford County School Board thanks, recognizes, and congratulates Alex Goshorn on his successful installation of a footbridge at Hartwood Elementary School and wishes him well as he works towards his completion of his Eagle Scout rank. So congratulations, Alex. Thank you very much. And for all you other potential Eagle Scouts, there's lots of projects in Stafford County. Love some help.
We're very proud of Alex Goshorn. Great young man, future leader for our country, and we like doing projects, Eagle projects, for the county, but especially for the schools.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Scoutmaster man.
Next, we'd like to, recognize Cherie Johnson, Director of Strategic Communication and Community Engagement, for presentation of awards.
Good evening, Madam Chair, school board members, and Dr. Kisner. I am here this evening to thank the community partners that teamed up with the Office of Strategic Communication and Community Engagement to help the SCPS Operation Warm More Than a Coat campaign to be a huge success. Community Engagement Manager Cherise Taylor led the event, which took place on October 25th at the Courthouse Community Center. Approximately 40 volunteers sorted and delivered over 1,000 new coats to ensure that all Stafford County Public School students in need are warm and prepared to succeed. Laura Wineski, Associate Director of Community Programs of Operation Warm, traveled from Pennsylvania to support this event. For the first time in several years, SCPS took the lead in this community engagement effort. However, collaboration with our stakeholders is key. We couldn't do it without our community partners. We raised over $20,000 with the help of 65 individuals and community partners, some of whom are represented here today and many others who could not attend. Thank you to SCPS counselors and staff who assisted with the coordination to make this event a success. Thank you to Stafford County Government Parks and Recreation for providing the location for this event. I would like to say a huge thank you to the communication team and Mr. Larry Fox for moving all of those coats to the community center. Lastly, I'd like to thank Outback Steakhouse, an official business partner with SCPS, for providing the delicious steak and egg breakfast for our volunteers. At this time, I would like to recognize our community partners. Representatives, please come forward when your name, business, or organization is called. Audience, please hold your applause until the end. Give Back Team Realtors of Caldwell Banker Elite. The Stafford Rotary Club. North Stafford Rotary Club. Apple Federal Credit Union. Sylvan Learning Center. Atlantic Builders. Walter B. Hom, Stafford Education Foundation, Wise Markets, Express Technologies Incorporated, Sorensen Gross Construction Services, Stafford Crossing Community Church, Outback Steakhouse, and Stafford County Parks, Recreation, and Community Facilities. Again, thank you for your support, and we look forward to many more partnerships in the future.
Thank you.
Thanks. Ms. Johnson, don't go away.
right. Good evening, Madam Chair, school board members, and Dr. Kisner once again. It is my pleasure to announce the employees that have provided between 25 and 45 years of service to Stafford County Public Schools. These are employees representing all areas of service in the division, and tonight we say thank you for all that you have accomplished and all that you will continue to accomplish in the future. We will announce the employees in categories of years with 25, 30, 35, 40, and 45, plus take a picture of each group. At this time, I would like to ask our employees with 25 years of service to come forward as we present the service pins. Nancy Seams, Anthony Burns Elementary School. Destiny Bradshaw, Anthony Burns Elementary School. Robin Hayes, Brook Point High School. Dewey Reynolds, Brook Point High School. Rita Furcheck, Conway Elementary School. Larissa Bowling, Child Find. Willard Simple, Edward E. Drew Jr. Middle School. Kathleen Byers, Ferry Farm Elementary School. Christina Barnett, Head Start. Tyler Newton, Ann E. Moncure Elementary School. Karen Richardson, North Stafford High School. Samuel Musselman, Operations and Maintenance. April LaForce, Park Ridge Elementary School. Sandra Green, Park Ridge Elementary School. Daniel Beverly, Stafford High School. Kristen Knott, Stafford High School. Kathy Mason, Stafford Middle School. Carol Dexter, Student Services. Ann Adams, T. Benton Gale Middle School. Okay. Nancy Zollner, Winding Creek Elementary School. Kathy Marks, Transportation. Terry Funk, School Nutrition. Deborah Heberly, School Nutrition. Farah Nurmag Hadam, School Nutrition. And Nancy Seams is actually with Margaret Brent Elementary School. Okay, we're going to get a group photo. Thank you. Thank you. Employees with 30 years of service, please come forward as we present the service pins. Diana Burgess, Dixon Smith Middle School. Rocky Roberts, Dixon Smith Middle School. Robin Nesakowski, Garrisonville Elementary School. Shalette Carmichael, Grafton Village Elementary School. Jane Simon Peachtree, Kate Waller Barrett Elementary School. Dr. Jim Stemple, Mountain View High School. Kimberly Shaw, Rock Hill Elementary School. Susan Whited, Stafford High School. Patricia Fredette, Stafford Middle School. Julie Barth, T. Benton Gale Middle School. Dreama Bourne, Transportation. Marilyn Gammon, Transportation. Deborah Kennedy, Transportation. Brenda Shomo, Transportation. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Brenda.
All right, employees with 35 years of service, please come forward as we present the service pins. Betty Rupert, Grafton Village Elementary School.
Okay, we're not.
Bonnie Browning, School Nutrition. Mrs. Pamela M. Kale, Associate Superintendent for Instruction. Mary Alice Robinson, T. Benton Gale Middle School.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Employees with 40 years of service, please come forward as we present the service pins. Joan Darby, North Stafford High School.
Who's not here?
Linda Shockey, Stafford Elementary School.
I was actually in her very first class. I don't know how she continued after that.
Winona Sigmund, Stafford High School.
Cool. Thanks very much.
There you go.
Here, I'll just squeeze it together.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Should we give her a pin?
Congratulations,
Should she
thank
get a
you.
pin?
And last but certainly not least, 45 years of service.
I hope she's here.
And this goes to Suzanne Gill, Stafford High School. Well, Mr. Lewis is here. Maybe Mr. Lewis can come and grab it for her. He'll make sure she gets it.
Maybe.
Thank you.
Okay, there you go. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Thank you to all of the employees for their service to SCPS. Thank you.
I didn't mean to summon you, but.
right, that brings us to the consent agenda. Do we have a motion?
Move that we approve the consent agenda?
Second?
Motion by Dr. Chase and second by Ms. Young. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Dr. Kisner, do you have anything to report?
Superintendent
Isn't
it staff middle reports?
No.
Yes.
On the, on the consent agenda.
Oh, I do, thank you. Slow and a little bit. So tonight, you just appointed two
Gotcha.
thank you, take care of me. Tonight, you appointed two assistant principals. I think Ms. Sullivan's here, is she here? She should be. Oh, I thought I saw her earlier. Ms. Stephanie Sullivan will assume, where is she?
Right there, she just stood up.
Oh, Steph, come closer. Ms. Sullivan will assume the position of Assistant Principal at Mountain View High School. Ms. Sullivan's currently the 10-month Assistant Principal at Rodney Thomas Middle School and has been in the role since 2014. Prior to becoming Assistant Principal, she taught math at Dixon Smith Middle School for 4 years and was also a homebound tutor. So congratulations and welcome. You got 2 for 1 with her. Very lucky. Okay. And
Only you
I don't know if Mr. Ralph is here. Oh, you're here.
You guys just met my second grade teacher.
Yeah. Well, this is, Mr. Ralph will assume the position of Assistant Principal for Athletics and Activities at Brook Point High School. Currently, he's the AP at Brook Point and has served in that role since 2007. Prior to becoming an assistant principal, he taught social studies there for 9 years. During that time, Mr. Ralph also coached football, girls basketball, girls and boys track and field. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kisner. That brings us to staff reports, 5.01, middle school's class size report. Mrs. Kale.
Good evening. Good evening, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, school board members, and Dr. Kisner. I stand before you tonight to provide you with the Stafford County Public Schools 2018-2019 middle school class size report. Of course, as you already know from the elementary report, the data for this report is based on student enrollment in core classes as of September 30th, 2018. To assist with the analysis of our class size reports, the Office of Demographic Planning provided the projection analysis report as of September 30th, 2018. Based on student enrollment as of September 30th, 2018, the total number of middle school students was 6,932, which is an increase of 235 students over the September 30th, 2017 student enrollment. We were 123 middle school students over the projection. Compared to the 2017-18 school year, we increased the number of classrooms by adding 1.5 FTEs to core academic areas. This table shows an increase in the number of classrooms from 1,067 to 1,093. The number of classrooms increased by 26 when compared to the 2017-18 school year and increased by 46 over the last 3 years. In addition, our average class size increased by 0.6 from 25.5 last year to 26.1 this year. This chart depicts the core classes by department and classroom averages at each school. The average class size for each department are as follows. English 25.4, History Social Studies 26.8, Mathematics 26.8, Science 26.3, and World Language 21.6. Please note, world language classes are not required at the middle school level. However, all other core subjects reported are required. In comparing our average department level class sizes this year, we decreased by 0.8 in English and stayed the same in world language. We increased by 0.9 in mathematics, we increased, I hope I said that. We increased by 0.9 in mathematics, 1.2 in history, social studies, and 1.2 in science. Please note that this does not reflect 3 positions added to middle school since September 30th. 1 position was added to Gale Middle School, that was a math position, and 2 positions were added to Drew Middle School, 1 math and a 0.5 science and a 0.5 social studies. As you can see, the section span shows the impact of our increased student enrollment and its effect on middle school class sizes. Many of you have already mentioned the need for lower middle school class sizes. Just as elementary numbers have decreased when the school board approved the elementary staffing standards with a continued focus on middle school, we will be able to decrease middle school class sizes. Decreasing middle school class sizes will be certainly our priority for next year when examining our middle school staffing methodology. As we prepare for the 2019-2020 school year, we're reviewing our middle school staffing methodology to meet the demands of our increasing student enrollment. We look forward to working collaboratively with the school board in reducing middle school class size. At the next school board meeting, we'll be presenting the 2018-19 high school class size report. Do you have any questions at this time?
What are? Hi, Ms. Kale, this is a good presentation. One of my questions was, what is the plan in reducing the middle school class size?
HR will be working certainly with our instruction team as we look at a methodology. They had worked on a formula last year that they were not able to do due to funding, but they're looking at new ways, whether it's, I don't even want to say it right now because somebody will hold me to that, so I'll just say, I'll be a little vague and say that they're looking at some ways to look at setting a certain number and saying maybe plus or minus a few, because it's very hard just to say that we have a cap at the middle school level.
Mm-hmm. I thought I saw on table 4 that Drew, H.H. Poole, and Rodney Thompson, they had 28 plus students, so that's something that you're all going to be working on, I guess?
Yes, we do have an increased number of classrooms this year at 28 or more students, and that certainly is not, as we know, what we aim for. We certainly, obviously, in the perfect world out there, we would have very small, extremely small class sizes, but in our educational system, we aim for between that 21 and 27, and this year, unfortunately, that decreased and the other increased.
Dr. Chase?
So first, thanks for putting this data together for us so we could take a look at it. And I'm thrilled to hear that Drew Middle School has gotten a couple more teachers because they had 75% of their classes at over 28 students,
Yes.
The highest in the county. And given that it's 43% economically disadvantaged, that's really kind of a problem. It's also of concern to me that Drew has had the highest class sizes for 3 years running. So it looks to me like there's a methodology problem, that 3 years straight we've had the highest class sizes. And then I'm also just wondering, looking at our projection analysis, do we need to look at redistricting for A.G. Wright, Rodney Thompson, and Drew Middle Schools? All of them are getting very close to full, and there are schools near them that are seem to have space. So just something for us to think about.
H.H. Poole is close to Rodney, and there's no space at H.H. Poole.
Yep.
But, yeah.
So those are my comments. But again, thank you very much, and I would really appreciate it if somebody could give me the new numbers for Drew class sizes after adding 2 more teachers.
I had some more questions, but I just wanted to give anybody else time.
Sure.
Ms.
Yeah.
Heather?
I have a few.
Oh, let me just finish one,
Okay,
and then
go ahead.
I'll
No,
give you
that's
the
fine.
room. World Studies, I can't remember which table it was, but World Studies were kind of, are they combined classes? What? World language, yeah, world languages, I'm sorry. Are these combined classes, or? One of them was kind of high, and then the other ones were low, so I was wondering if the one that was high, was it somehow more than one class together, or like, how does it work?
We will have to check. The folks that helped me with this are Mr. Nichols and Lisa Boatwright, in addition to, obviously, to our technology team. We can look into that and let you know. I don't
Okay.
think it was combined, though. I don't
Okay.
think it was combined.
Okay.
Correct.
Because all of them, like, looked normal, except for that one was kind of high, so I was wondering if it was a combined class. Table 2,
It's right here.
that's 3.
No,
Two.
it went up to there.
That
Thir-
shows
32?
word language. Yeah, word language.
Rodney Thompson.
Rodney Thompson's 32.9, and then everything else is like teens, high teens, so I was just wondering, what was that?
And part of that may be the interest of the students in the schools. Because I remember when,
That is very true.
way back when my daughter was in middle school, all the students who wanted to take foreign language were not able to take it because of restrictions
Yeah.
in the number that could be
Either
in a
the foreign
class.
language or the teacher. Okay, thank you. Holly?
Sure. I have mostly comments. I appreciate all the work that's been done on this. I know, though, over the last 2 years, and I know Mr. McCosker, Ms. Healy, actually, Ms. Egan, we remembered, we had identified middle school about
Yes.
a year or two ago, and there was a
You definitely
plan that
have.
was going in. Can you describe, well, you don't maybe have to describe that plan, but is it that we're going to tweak that? I just want to make sure I was understanding what the methodology going forward along the lines of what Dr. Chase was saying.
Well, there are two. One is still going back to the middle school schedule,
Okay,
and they're working on that as a team, and they just met this week, so that'll be news to come. And in addition, what I know Ms. Boatwright and Mr. Nichols worked on last year was a formula, and they can better describe that for you if you need that. But at the time, due to funding, we couldn't implement. So we're looking at some other ways this year to present to you all.
If I could just say, and I don't know the answer, I've heard the number 1.5, but somebody would let me know if that's correct. To go to a question that was asked, what is the plan? This is a partnership, because if I understand correctly, only 1.5 new positions were budgeted for middle school. So when you saw is that,
That is what, we had growth positions budgeted, but that was what was given to middle school when they looked at all of the growth. And of course, obviously, we have to follow the elementary staffing standards for the caps. So with that in place, that's how that they ended up exactly right, though, of 1.5.
exactly in that vein, and so I'm going to be saying this to my colleagues on the FAB. I have heard, and please, no disrespect meant, that, well, we couldn't do this because of funding. I will tell you, I don't know if I was ever advised, we are cutting 5 positions because we can't meet this. And Mr. McCosker, you and I were together last, during that thing, and I don't remember that. And, maybe it was Barry, and I'm not, but from my perspective, the more concrete that can be said, that's a trade-off that we need to say to our community, whether we say we are increasing class size, whether we say we are cutting positions. Because from my perspective, this is all really interesting, and this is great data, but I will tell you the number, and it's harder to do with middle school than it was with elementary, and I did it
Yes,
with
I
elementary,
agree with
was
you.
count the number of teachers. I would like to know, last year we had, I have no idea, 432 middle school teachers. A year later, we have 433, 427, or 450. That, to me, gives me a better idea of where that allocation, as Dr. Kisner was saying, because how I feel that the positions are brought to us is we have growth positions, and they are just said 15 positions, or 20, or 30, or 50, but not in that. And from my perspective, and maybe the teacher number isn't helpful, but for me, I'm not like some of my colleagues, math is not it, but I can tell if you had 430 one year and the next year you added 2, we may not be moving real far unless, like you said, the companion piece of the schedule. So that would be helpful. As I said, I will say that to my colleagues on the FAB, but I would be looking for that.
We can get
A little
that for you.
foreshadowing.
We can get that for you. And I apologize, I want to make sure that I'm clear. I'm not saying you all have certainly identified over the past couple of years the need for middle school. When I say budgeting, maybe I use the wrong term, because basically I'm talking about the positions given, and we know budget is a very difficult and lengthy process, and you all work extremely hard and have been dedicated to making sure that our class sizes have been small. But still, as I said, with the staffing of the elementary, it pulls X number of positions every time.
And
We can look at that. Mhm.
Can I ask, this is probably one of those that you say, well, that's not a stupid question. When you say you add a .5 position, to me, is that a current instructor takes on an additional section? Does that mean that we have more itinerant people moving among buildings? And I know it can be varied, but when I hear a .5 position, it's sort of like the .5 student. I'm like, well, you have to.
No,
say
actually, that's a good question, good question.
Thank you.
But currently, and correct me if I'm wrong back there, but the .5 positions will be a half-time position. Now, once in a while, we do have to tweak that, we have with world languages, as you know, or some other things, but right now, that's what we're looking at.
Ms. Egan?
Well, Mr. Nicholas has been working with his middle school principals, and they're certainly working on RTI, response to intervention, which is certainly something we will be talking and sharing with you later, but working with our tier levels, et cetera, and to making sure that all students are receiving the assistance they need. And so with that, they're working on developing a schedule that will help allow that.
Maybe I'm still half asleep. How is that going to bring down class sizes? I don't understand.
Well, I can let Mr.
Sorry, I didn't have my
Nichols,
mic on.
or I can just tell you that in addition with that, and whether when we're looking at our schedules, and building principals, they need to do what is right for their building. And sometimes, and we all have talked about this before and a few years ago about with math, et cetera, that some principals have chosen, and like I said, it's their building and they know their students, that maybe there will be more students in some of the higher level classes, and then they purposely make some of the other classes less. And that's part of their choice when they're doing that. As far as with the scheduling, Mr. Nichols, did you want to?
Well, I really think that's going to be on a future agenda item. It has to be flushed out. I mean,
Yes.
more than happy to
Okay.
have him come up, but
Very true.
That's fine, it's just that
Yeah.
if it's
Yeah.
being, mapped out to us as as a fix to what we're dealing with here, people that are watching are gonna ask questions, so I wanted to get just
I
a
would
little bit
tell
of
you
background on it.
that's not going to be the fix. If your objective is lower class sizes, the question I would ask you to think about is, there's trade-offs. So if you're seeking, I would like to believe that the schedule that each of the middle schools will have is designed around children learning to the highest levels. And I would say I'm going to say something that I know is not going to be very popular, okay, but I'm just going to say it. Class size does not guarantee that to occur, okay? So if the whole discussion is going to be lowering class sizes, we also got to be honest with the public, that doesn't necessarily correlate, surely not a causation, to student performance improving. So the RTI model, I believe, is trying to hit that objective of improving student learning, but it's not designed around the notion, it's not going to adversely impact class sizes, I will tell you that much, but it's not designed, people who implement RTI do not design it to lower class sizes.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page here, because what it almost sounds like to me is that we're going to be taking some opportunities away from kids
Yeah.
to reallocate teachers and stuff like that, and I just want to make, we've done a heck of a job with trying to have parity within the school division. I just want to make sure that that's not an option for us to take programs and break up RT, the
Yeah.
intervention classes in order to provide for the advanced classes. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
And I just want to say, I can absolutely agree about class size, but when class sizes at one school, 75% are 28 or higher, and another school, only 25% are 28 or higher, then I have to wonder what we're doing, okay? I don't have a problem with higher class sizes if we agree that that's across the board. But if some schools are getting short shrift, I have a problem with it.
I have one more question in terms of class size. So in Table 3, I know this is a static report and it's wonderful, but I'm wondering, if we could drill down sometimes, because I don't know, like, what questions you're trying to answer. But with, like, so I'm trying to figure it out. Is it table 3? Yeah. Or table 4, actually. So you have, like, Dixon Smith. It says 28 or more students, 37. I'm trying to figure out what class is this that is that the way you read it? 28 or more students, and then the number's 37 across its Dixon Smith Middle School? So are you saying that there are 37 classes that have 28 or more students?
Am I looking
Table
at the
4.
right chart?
Table 4,
Class, you're looking at the class size report.
class size report. Just trying to understand how to read it.
Wrong one, sorry.
Sorry. Class size report, the first one. Yeah. Table 4? Can you give him some water over there?
This one?
Yeah. How do you read that? Yeah.
Where it says 28 or more, for example, Dixon Smith, is that what you were saying?
Yeah,
Dixon
yeah,
Smith
how do
has
you read it?
37 classrooms with 28 or more students.
And Rodney Thompson, 94.
Yes.
H.H. Poole, 74. And Edward Drew, 61.
Yes.
So is there a way that we could tell what classes they are? Like, they're all
We can pull them, yes, as far as,
trying to get you to do more work, but it's like if we could drill down, that would be, to know which classes these are that are 28 or more, but yeah,
we can get that.
if it's not too much work.
all the core subjects.
It's all the core.
Yeah,
It's all the core
I would
plus
know.
world language.
just math, or,
Agreed,
yeah,
but
yeah,
so I know
gotcha.
it's not PE.
Yeah, yeah, oh, yeah. Thank you.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
In some of the middle school classes, there was some chatter about not having the regular general education teachers being the key teachers in those classrooms. That there have been reading specialists, there have been focus teachers reallocated to kind of help bring down class sizes. Is there any truth to that?
There's some, there are some schools that use their staff in that way, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Healy?
And those are, of course, counted in here because it's coded as an English class or whatever.
All right, I just wanted to make a comment. I appreciate this report, and I think what it does is bring the board's attention to the need to focus on giving additional staffing of teacher positions to the middle schools. We have made a tremendous gain in the elementary schools, and I think it shows in that report, but it may have been in part at the cost of the middle schools. If we've set some class size standards, or for the middle schools, did you say we have those that
We are
we've
currently
exceeded?
working on devising something that we think could be possible, and it may take a few years, just like,
Oh, of
obviously,
course.
the elementary standards, et cetera.
Right, well, if that can get to us before we start budget, at least intense budget discussion, I think that would be very helpful, because these disparities are, pretty significant. I mean, I'm looking at the 28 or more students, and they range from a low of 37 to a high of 94. And there can't possibly be parity when you have over twice as many classes in one school with 28 or more than, the lowest school. And the other ones aren't even that close. So I think that would be a good thing for, us to keep in mind, and maybe our FAB can, take a look at that for us, too.
And it would be nice to see, what classes they are.
Ms. Healy?
Yes,
Exactly in the vein sort of that you're talking, I think something we also have to, that the projection analysis was attached to this agenda item. The interesting part to me is we grew in middle school 3.5%. Don't use that 1.8, that's not, it's over. And I went back and looked at last year's, and we grew 2.2% in middle school. Conversely, when I ran it for the elementary school, it's not even quite 1%. So I think that there's something we also need to look at is, many people have heard me opine about the new housing that we are offering in Stafford, maybe bringing people with older students to Stafford County. But I think we need to start to recognize that, and Dr. Chase, you can argue with me on this one, but I believe, and so this is probably more for our planning folks, in the past, right or wrong, with elementary, we pulled out our pre-K. I'm looking at some of the numbers at Drew Middle School, and I'm thinking, is it also that we may or may not, and please no, I don't know, have space if we were to create additional, implement whatever comes forward? What if we go to Drew, as you have said, in elementary school, here's the staffing standard, we are out of room. Drew is rather unique, in my opinion, that I'm wondering, I'm sure Matt and Scott Haran are hiding from me, to have an asterisk on Drew with regard to capacity of demonstrating that there is capacity at that school, is being used for the private day school, no comment. But we may get to a point where that may need to be pulled out for our funding body, because, and Dr. I'm just, that struck me.
And what I would note is that Dixon Smith is at about 74%.
Right.
So another solution is to redistrict in order to lower the numbers at Drew.
Right. And I'm not saying not, but I do think at some point we might want to have that bifurc, or however they did it, on there, of saying that is a unique use of Drew, and should some things on Truslow Road go the way they may be going, that is a feed into Drew. And like I said, redistricting, well, I don't really want the redistricting bug, let's just be honest.
Oh,
but
we've already got it.
I know, but I'm just saying, I think that's something, and I think we as a board, and hopefully when our projections come to us, which I know we're expecting, I think we have to look at that trend, not to use the wrong word, but 2.2 last year, 3.5 this year. Elementary's very much around the 1, and I just think that that's a story we need to be telling, and it goes to our CIP and building usage and staff. It all is combined.
Are you planning on going over the other documents?
So,
I just have one.
so I guess that was just a comment,
That's a good
sorry.
point.
I finished.
She's done, she did the staffing report.
Oh, okay, because, all right.
I'll just.
I mean, if I could say one last thing, you know, because we said the word Drew a lot today, so I'm always curious when we see these patterns. So if you take 16, 17, compare to 17, 18, Drew had one of the lower numbers of classes of 28 and higher, and then it jumped up. So to me, these are really architectural, not architectural and building design. And it's what you guys, I think, were talking about. Program design, maybe some focus of the staff with the administration. So I guess what I'm really sharing with you is that when I look at these patterns, 17, 18, for some of the schools, something happened. Maybe our counting method was different. I mean, that's another thing. We might have counted wrong in 17, 18, or, no, we would not be counting wrong today this year. So I don't want us to overly react on this year, because last year, if you had the same report, you were probably feeling pretty good,
When are we using these numbers for? This
based on how it's such, we went from 38, we went from 53 at Drew in 16, 17 to 38, up to 61. And I don't want us just to react on one year, because we didn't do that last year, I would imagine.
Let me jump in there real quick, since it was a good discussion, though. I learned a lot, so. Just real quick, the projection analysis charts that I see, elementary school, it looks like it has program capacity for its 2017-18 numbers, and then the rest, of course, are the building capacity. So I don't know, that kind of just threw me for a minute. I was confused on the numbers there. So I just hope we don't continue to use program when we already voted on design, right? The old program. So the second thing is, so, you know, that's good to hear. I know that the, you know, the schedules, that's hard work on the schedules for middle school. That's, if we do go into our sessions, and just like we did for elementary schools, and we say, hey, we need, we want to get class sizes down to a cap, of 20 whatever, and that's going to cost more people, which we may not be able to fit into the Rodney Thompson, the Drew, the Winding Creek, or, whatever that school is. Winding Creek's a bad example, but, so that would mean redistricting for those high-performing middle schools that a lot of times that the folks don't want to entertain. They say, go away from my school, we're doing great here. So those are some of the hard things to consider. It's not an overnight fix, but yeah, I mean, if we do lower the schools, we don't have the room in them, then we'll have to move them to schools. Dixon Smith does have plenty of room. So, and it's an outstanding school, and it's about not even a mile away where the crow flies, right? So that's one fix. And so anyway, I'm excited to move into the discussions on this topic. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, I have one.
Ms. Young, one more question.
Yeah, I had one more question. So my question that I had on this projection analysis, the 2017 numbers, was that based on design capacity, since we didn't discuss program capacity back then? I don't know, I'm just asking.
Middle school is design.
School and high, we haven't changed it yet. Elementary's program.
Okay, so it's design.
Should
Middle school and high school.
This chart, but
Okay, design,
old program.
high school. And so the September 30 is design. Okay, perfect. I just wanted to make sure. Yeah. Okay.
Is this the latest design that was approved, or the latest program? It doesn't look like it, because I didn't think we had any schools over 100% capacity. When we applied
So, I'm
Talking about
confused.
elementary?
right, the numbers that matched what we are actually
Yeah,
staffing for.
this is the old elementary program. That's what we're using, right? That's why I brought it up.
Why?
I said,
No, why are we using the
oh,
old one?
well,
when we
that's
have
another,
it?
that's the second question. So why? Why is it up there?
Okay, all right, okay.
It's confusing enough, we're trying to simplify.
Absolutely. So the reason why the 2017-18 program capacity was carried over was because the 2018-19, this year's program capacity, had not yet been calculated at the time of this report.
Okay, that's why I was asking.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, okay. Thank you.
All right, well, if anyone else has questions,
We will
please send them
email.
to Dr. Kisner, and he will share the responses with all of us.
I'll answer them the way I want you to know it.
No, you wouldn't do that.
And we appreciate our FAB looking into this
Yes,
as
Fab.
and part of when
We're being
when we're looking at our
Help, Fab,
budget
help.
here.
priorities. All right. Thank you very much, Mrs. Kale. Sorry you're
Thanks,
on the
Ms. Kale.
firing line, especially the night you get your pin, but you're a survivor, obviously, after 35 years, so, thank you.
Thank you.
That brings us to 5.02, the FY19 Quarterly Financial Report. Mr. Fulmer.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Refresh? Okay.
I'm gonna try to make this quick and then let you guys ask a couple questions if you have any. First, this is just a high-level overview. We're very early in the year right now, so one of the attachments will have some of the actual numbers, and you'll see some of them may only be, for example, expenditures are only about 17%. So first quarter, obviously, we're roughly 25% through the year is what this report is representing, but understand that included in that is the summertime, and then there's also some areas where we buy ahead, first purchase for the whole year, whether it's material supplies. Some accounts may have higher percentages than others, but that's nothing to be alarmed about. So just wanted to point out that it is early, and one of the key items is our ADM number is what we track, as you just saw on the previous report. But our budgeted ADM was 28,934. The September 30th enrollment was 28,905, so we're in line. The budgeted ADM is based on the state ADM, not necessarily our projections. So state revenues tracking as expected. Sales tax on the report will show that a very small percentage is collected, and that is normal, as it's usually several months behind. Federal revenues are, we have very small in the operating fund that are federal, usually just impact aid and some of the ROTC stuff, but so the impact aid typically comes mid to later in the year, so there's very little federal revenues, but it's tracking as expected. And same with our other revenues. Expenditures, salary and benefits are constantly being monitored, and especially the lapse, but once again, early in the year, so we can project a little bit of there, but the actual lapse is not incurred until we continue through the year. Most of the other expenditures are tracking within the accepted variance. I just wanted to point out, we do have some contracted services, and this is a usual thing that areas that we're unable to fill and that we can contract out due to requirements for compliance. We do transfer the savings from that empty position into our contracted services line. So we start with some money in our contracted services line to cover increases over what we budget for the individual employee. Just wanted to point out the psychs and the speech path specifically are some of the areas that we have transferred money out of those budgeted salary lines into the contracted services lines. And that's an area where Ms. Boatwright and Ms. Johnson and I have met on several occasions to talk about ways that we need to address those going forward to try to fill them, but they are very tough positions to fill. So just wrapping up, the quarterly report shows just our FY19 activity only, and years past for board members that have been on the board. Sometimes there was an overlap of prior year activity that has crossed over into the new year. The new system does allow us to exclude that activity and only look at activity that's impacting the current year budget. So it makes it a little bit cleaner. And I've just attached the quarterly PowerPoint presentation that the Board of Supervisors was provided last month. And so I will pull it up. I know it, these are just the numbers for revenues and then each of our functional categories. I'm not going to go over each line item. This is a format that you are familiar with. Any
Chris, before we
questions?
get
Yep.
off, Madam Chair, pardon. Chris, before we get off that, just real quick, Dr. Kisner, we try to make sure that if these reports go over to the supervisors, that just give us a heads up. So when I get a call from my supervisor that, hey, I'm looking at your quarterly report and I haven't seen it yet, that's usually not a good conversation when all the board members are caught that way. So just, I know you're busy, just make sure we get them.
Yeah, and I have not provided this to anybody on the county side. I always provide it to you guys first.
Oh, I thought you said you sent the quarterly report over to the.
No, I have I included the county's quarterly report that they have.
Oh,
which
my
excludes
apologies.
ours. Yep.
My apologies. Okay, sorry.
Yep, no problem at all.
I still like my point, but
Because we might do it
I
another time.
apologize.
so-
Yeah.
I'm still right. Sorry, Chris, go ahead.
Not guilty, Mr. Fulmer.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I have them, you know.
Sure.
I will make them short. I was intrigued what you said about ADM. What is a state ADM number versus what I think of as our ADM number? And maybe it's because it's an average and they are assuming throughout the year that we will increase over time, because certain schools, I know, increase. So I'm just trying to understand what a state ADM number is, and maybe you've explained it to me before. My apologies. If
No,
you
you're
have.
fine. So the state releases the average daily membership, which is taking into account the fluctuations during the year. So they budget that our final ADM for the entire year will be 28,934 is what they expected in the FY19 budget. And so we always use the state's numbers because that matches up to what the state will give us in revenue. So when those numbers go up or down, the state would adjust that after the March 31st enrollment numbers are reported. And they come out with a final budgeted or final average daily membership that calculates our final payments from the state.
But
We use enrollment numbers, so what we reported on September 30th, obviously that's not going to be the same number we have every day for the rest of the year. So we have to report to the state, I believe it's monthly, of our actual enrollment numbers, and they take those numbers and smooth them out to come up with the average daily membership.
Could those reports be provided to the board if you're providing them to the state? Because it is interesting to see how the numbers fluctuate throughout the year, because I think certain schools, that is really important. So that helps me to understand that ADM number. But, so they do take into account, let's say, we hit December and all of a sudden everybody wants to move to, well,
Correct.
maybe, hopefully they don't come with a car, but, you know, let's say they all come there. So if it kind of does spike mid-year, are you telling me that the state ADM number can reflect that change, or is it like a year later it reflects, you know what I'm
No,
saying? Because some things
yeah.
are sort of in arrears.
So, for instance, if we added 30 kids midway through the year, they would count as 15 on our ADM, so they would increase
I see.
our enrollment number would go up by the 15, not the full 30.
The state payments get adjusted after the March.
Correct.
So right now, after the September one, they have a number that they're giving us monthly. And then in March, they'll determine if they gave us the right amount, too little, or too much.
And they notify us in June of what our final payments will be for FY19 at this point.
And just my final question, I'll be done. When you have on that sheet, adopted budget versus adjusted, if I understood you correctly, the adjusted budget mostly is in, and like I said, I only have just seen this, so I'm doing a quick scan, is in the salary lines, and you were saying the reason that those salary lines were moving, you know, 250,000, is they would be moved to other staff-type positions, but they are called something different, like a
Absolutely.
A contracted service or,
Where we have to contract with an agency to fill, most commonly our psych and speech path positions because they're required. So we're unable to fill them, so we contract out. We have some money budgeted in those contracted services lines to begin the year, but it's not enough to pay for, we only budget enough to cover the increase of what the contract is going to cost other than over the salary lapse number. So we take that vacant position, we move the budget related to it into the contracted services line to cover the remainder.
because just looking at those two columns, that's a change of $500,000 from our salary line to something contracted. I mean, that's, you know, I mean, I'm not, it's just a comment.
And it's been an increase this year over, it went up some last year and it's continued to increase this year.
Something we should, I mean, anyway, that was just the thing that I noticed the most.
On a positive note, our legal fees have actually leveled off. In the prior years, we were kind of busting that budget, and we haven't done that this year. And part of that was specific.
Don't jinx us.
Yeah.
I have one question.
Yes.
Under technology, thank you, Madam Chair. Under technology, what is the difference between the purchase services and the materials and supplies? So say, for example, if teachers are, you know, at a conference, technology, something to do with technology, does it fall under here, or would it fall somewhere else on this, in this budget?
If a gen ed teacher is at a conference, it would fall under the instructional line. If we have like ITRTs or the TRTs or CTTs, they could fall under this technology line. But our gen ed teachers that are at a conference are typically going to fall under the conference travel fees line for the instructional category.
Instructional, and so the difference between that purchase service?
The purchase services is going to be like software costs for the whole division. So
And then materials and supplies?
materials and supplies are most commonly, it could be any technology that costs less than $5,000 is going to fall under there. Anything greater than $5,000 would go under capital outlay. So replacement computers, all our cyclic replacement fall under our materials and supplies lines.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Fulmer. Anyone else have any questions? All right, we'll move right along to citizen comments.
Thank you.
We have 14 people who have already signed up to speak, and after that, we will invite members of the audience to speak if they wish to, but because we have such a number of speakers, we will need to keep to that 3-minute rule here. Mr. McOsker isn't here, so I will read the blurb. Individuals wishing to comment at this time may do so by responding to the general invitation of the chairman. We will call the people who have pre-signed first. Speakers shall identify themselves by name, address, and organizational affiliation if the spokesperson represents an organization. Speakers shall also announce the purpose/topic of their comments. 3 minutes shall be allotted to speakers. The chairman reserves the right to restrict the total citizen comment received at any particular meeting to a predetermined maximum number of minutes with the approval of the board. Citizen comment which is profane, abusive, or which threatens imminent physical harm shall be ruled out of order by the chairman. Although the board provides the opportunity for citizen comment, individuals desiring to register complaints against division employees or division programs, services, or activities may also utilize procedures outlined in Stafford County Public School Policy 1113, public comments. I'm going to call the first four speakers, so you can line up, and then we'll call the next four to try to keep this on track. There's a little stoplight there. The green starts the 3 minutes. The yellow tells you there's 1 minute left, and the red is when time is up. The first speaker is Jenny Natividad. The second speaker is Philip Natividad. The third speaker is Annika Natividad. And the fourth speaker is Franco Dickey.
Greetings, members of the board, Dr. Kisner. My name is Jenny Natividad, and I'm here before you in my role as a mother, a nurse, and a type 1 diabetes community leader. I'm the mother of Annika Natividad that will be speaking shortly. As a mother, I'm asking for safe passage for my child at school and receive a free and appropriate public education. As a nurse, you expect your employer to safeguard your practice, train you for your position, and allow you to practice within your full scope. But most importantly, to keep your clients safe, and that's what I'm asking of all of you. As a community leader, I'm asking for additional actions towards a positive and trusting relationship with the school administration and nurses, for it's crucial for the safety and education of the students with type 1 diabetes. As a result of our struggles as a family, we have been leaders in new laws and state legislations that we have not seen implemented but are very much needed in this school and require swift resolution. Carrying needed supplies, treatment of low blood sugars, plans for lockdowns, trained use of reinsertion, and reinsertion of the medical devices are just a few of the immediate needs. Thank you to the school nurses who attended a working group meeting with the parents to work towards making these improvements. And thank you to Dr. Kisner for we would like to present you with a certificate from the state of Virginia recognizing November as Diabetes Awareness Month. This came from the governor's office, and we're very proud. We also have tomorrow's World Diabetes Day, and my husband will explain that in just a little bit. But this is an opportunity for Stafford County to lead the way. I ask you to give the families a voice, to keep current, and to promote collaboration, for it is the children of the families that these decisions affect most. We look forward to these improvements, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Philip Natividad?
Good evening, Phil Natividad, 126 Gentle Breeze Circle. Good evening, Stafford County School Board. I'm here today as a parent to speak on the need for better directed health services for type 1 diabetes, T1D, in the schools. You'll also hear from others regarding their own direct experiences with administrators, teachers, school nurses, and other school employees. Some of these interactions have been very good, but other interactions have been unsafe health practices for someone with T1D. Something uncommon for all children upon their diagnosis and return to the school environment, or in some cases entry into kindergarten, is the need to provide safety and publication, the same as for all our school children. Tomorrow, November 14, is World Diabetes Day, celebrating the birth of Frederick Banting, who discovered insulin and insulin injection therapy that saved the life of my youngest daughter and millions of others every day. One striking thing, though, is even though T1D is increasing in populations worldwide, it's possible that at any given moment, one school might have no students with T1D, or so they think. The point I will make is that there are these times are just as much in need of a baseline level of T1D awareness and readiness as the times when they have known T1D students. There needs to be countywide actions in place for the increasing numbers of students being diagnosed as T1D at any time. If a child unknowingly has T1D, their blood sugar levels can be extremely high, 5 or 6 times higher than normal, and in danger of fatal diabetic ketoacidosis, or DKA. On the other hand, after diagnosis, if eating later than intended or given large amounts of insulin, blood sugar can drop so low as to lose consciousness. At these early stages of low blood sugar, symptoms can be noticeable and corrected with simply a juice box and a solid snack. However, some school situations, such as emergency lockdown, are a special concern. Although in our case, we provided small emergency food kits for each of our daughter's classrooms, PE classes, course volleyball, special activities. This does not appear to be a standard practice, which is concerning. Another example, students may need to shelter in place for an extended time in inclement weather or other disasters, and T1D supplies and routine care would be needed. Schools need to be planning ahead for emergencies before they occur. In short, T1D children have been lost to both extremely high or extremely low blood sugars. We're asking all schools to be better prepared, trained to recognize the symptoms, and provide routine and emergency care. T1D is deceptive. It can be an invisible, quote-unquote, disease, but with increasingly more common, mainstream, and effective medical treatments, T1D students can do exactly the same things as all their peers. We urge you to provide the necessary physical health, academic health, and medical health services as part of an equal, free, appropriate public education for all our students. Thank you.
Next is Annika Natividad, followed by Franco Dickey.
Hello, members of the board. My name is Annika Natividad. In January, I will have had diabetes for 8 years. I was a captain of the Colonial Forge freshman volleyball team, and I sang in ladies' chorale. Last but not least, I am in the Commonwealth Governor School program. Sometimes I really need a break from my diabetes care, but there isn't one. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There are no breaks. Currently, I am in a medical diabetes trial for some very intuitive, very new technology at the University of Virginia. I had a continuous glucose monitor, or a CGM, and an insulin pump before the study, but they were separate devices that did separate things. The experimental technology is amazing. I say having experienced life with and without it. It's a CGM and an insulin pump that communicate in one device. They work together to make my life at home and at school much easier. The CGM continuously samples my blood sugar, and tells me not only what the reading is right now, but it can predict where it will be in a few minutes. The pump takes that information and doses precise amounts of insulin on those calculations automatically, just like that. This makes my load so much lighter and does a better job than any human could ever do. This differs from a single shot of insulin in many, many ways. For one, a shot is a one-time thing. You manually draw up the amount of insulin and you give the shot. It's a set amount and it's a one and done sort of deal. This device, however, operates on its own. It can predict where my blood sugar will be and act accordingly. It takes trends from past experiences, what's happening right now, and what's bound to happen in the future, all into account. It reacts to the slightest changes in my bloodstream just to keep me healthy. This has a tremendous impact on my overall health as well as peace of mind. It essentially replaces my pancreas, the organ that bailed on me when I was 7. Actually, just last Thursday, my CGM site failed at school. This meant that it had to be reinserted as soon as possible. I was without readings, without a magic blood sugar correcting program, and without anything, really. I was completely in the dark for what my blood sugar was for almost 4 hours. Luckily, my family and I had prepared for these situations before school started. Luckily, I had a backup CGM site at the school, and I took a couple minutes out of my lunch period to stop in and reinsert my site. It is incredibly easy, literally the click of a button. It took only a few minutes, and I could do it all by myself, but the nurse looked on just in case I needed any help. It's not unheard of for a site to fall out at school, but it's not great or convenient for any party involved. It might be a slice of cake for me, but my friend Bella, which you'll hear from in a few minutes, needs someone trained to reinsert her pump or CGM.
Thank you. Anyone who would like to submit their comments for the record can give them to our clerk, Ms. Hall, at the end of the podium here. The next speaker is Franco Dickey, followed by Yolanda Dickey and Bella Dickey. Must be Isabella with you.
Yes, this is Isabella. Hello, my name is Yolanda Dickey, and I'm at 58 Liberty Knowles Drive. I'm a disabled Marine Corps veteran. I'm also the proud parent of Isabella Dickey, who is 6 years old and in kindergarten attending Winding Creek Elementary School. Our daughter was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when she was 3 years old. Overall, the support and the interactions we get from my daughter's school have been very good. I would be lying if I didn't say the other interactions have been unsafe health practices for someone with T1D. There are so many topics I would love to discuss this evening, but due to time constraints, the 2 topics I would love to address today is needed services, such as battery changes and infusion set changes for kids who need full-time care, and understanding how the treatment and monitoring devices work, such as a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM. My first topic, we were told on numerous occasions that the nurse were not able and not allowed to reinsert an insulin pump due to county policy. We didn't understand the ramifications of that meeting until it happened 1 week after school started on Friday, September 14th. On September 14th, my daughter's insulin pump failed. It was not reinserted, and the school nurse decided to put my daughter on a bus to her aftercare program. By the time I reached, my daughter's blood sugar had increased from a normal range of 104 to 463 due to an insulin pump failure. As far as battery changes, this seems to still be an issue, and I honestly still don't understand why. Why do we have school nurses telling parents they will not change the batteries, and they will actually allow a pump to die because they're being told by their higher command, their bosses, they are not allowed to? My last topic is treatment and monitoring devices. Changes so nurses should know and understand how those devices work. For example, the FDA approved and permitted the Dexcom G6 for making diabetes treatment decisions with 0 finger steps and no calibration. But you still have nurses finger pricking 3 to 5 times a day because they don't understand how the devices work. In summary, every job requires training. Some jobs require it quarterly, annually, and semi-annually. This should not be any different for school nurses. Parents should not feel that we have to be on pins and needles or have to be on call to reinsert an insulin pump or just change 2 batteries. There will be times where a parent cannot make it back to the school in a timely fashion, and a school should be able to meet any type 1 diabetic's daily needs and not cause unnecessary emergencies. Thank you again for allowing me this time to speak.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Isabella, want to speak to us?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Isabella Dickey. I'm 6 years old, and it's easy to take off a pump. You get alcohol and then just wipe it off, and then it's easy to put a PDM batteries in. You take off the case and you put 2 batteries in. Thank you.
Thank you. Did Mr. Franco Dickey want to speak?
No.
No, okay. Thank you. All right, the next speakers are Tina Burleson, Tracy McGee, and Emily McGee.
Greetings, Chairman and Superintendents. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Tina Burleson, and this is my daughter, Brianna Fitton. We're from Spotsylvania County. We have ran it. She has become a diabetic as 3 years old. Excuse me. She is now a sophomore. We have run into issues as well. In elementary school, we had an incident where the school nurse mixed up the Lansing device and took another kid's Lansing device and pricked her finger. And I wasn't called until later on that afternoon. And Brianna was the one that caught on, but it had already been pricked, which means another needle of a kid went into her skin. And then when we got into middle school and she became on another pump, we've had issues with it failing. Every time that it failed, I would have to leave work and go to her school, which takes me more than an hour time I get there, change her out, and come back. It would definitely help if these nurses, if we could get them on board and learn how to change the set out. One, it would keep the kids in their classes longer because she has to sit in the nurse's office until I get there, change her out, and get her back. So that's time that she's wasted that she could be in class. So there are more and more kids being diagnosed with this disease. And I just ask that if we could help our nurses get trained more on board and to help. Now she can change herself out, so it definitely helps, but there's a lot of kids that can't and need help with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Kristen Shaw. Tracy McGee is not able to be here, but I do have her statement. Is that okay if I, is that all right?
Sure, you'll need to sign her in when you finish.
Tracy is signed in.
But you'll need to sign in
Okay.
when you finish. There's a
Okay.
sign-in sheet there.
All right, thank you. All right, so Tracy McGee has a daughter, Emily. She is 7 years old, and she was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes 1 year ago. Since the diagnosis, Tracy has encountered several issues at school that she feels needs to be addressed. It's obvious there's a lack of knowledge with substitute school nurses and teachers, and she wants to discuss the severity of hypoglycemia and not having a knowledgeable nurse or school staff in general when these terrifying moments happen. So she wants to talk about 2 frightening incidents that took place in her daughter's school. The first was last year, shortly after Emily was diagnosed. Tracy, her daughter Emily has a Dexcom, so Tracy was able to watch her numbers, and she could watch on the Dexcom as the numbers steadily dropped. She called the nurse office and the substitute, so a substitute nurse, and the nurse said that she gave the daughter sugar-free Jell-O and string cheese, and didn't understand why her sugar was not going up. Tracy explained that she needed carbohydrates to raise her blood sugar. The nurse did not know what to do, and she did not know what to get for her to eat. So Tracy walked the substitute nurse through it. As soon as she hung up the phone, the nurse called right back to tell her that her daughter had finished her snack and that her sugar was still not going up. She wanted to give another snack, and Tracy said, no, you have to follow the rule of 15. The substitute nurse had no idea what that was. With hypoglycemia, you need to give a 15-carb snack, wait 15 minutes, and then recheck. So needless to say, Tracy had to leave work early, go pick up her daughter, because now her daughter's blood sugar was at 63. The second terrifying incident happened just 1 month ago. She was watching her daughter's blood sugar again on the Dexcom, and within 20 minutes she was at 32, a very dangerous low. She called the school nurse, another substitute nurse, and Emily was not even in the office, so she was still in her classroom. So the nurse had no idea that Emily's blood sugar was low. Instead, the classroom teacher had asked Emily, what do we need to do? Emily, again, recently diagnosed, and a young child, was a little unsure. So the teacher gave her 38 carbs, okay, so instead of 15. So Emily rebounded to now a dangerous high of 400. The nurse ran down to check on the daughter, ran down to check on Emily, and Tracy and her husband ran to school because now they're afraid for their daughter. Sure enough, when they got to the school, the daughter was in the nurse's office eating another snack. So she had had about 50 carbs total, so way too high, and it took all the way until the next morning for Emily to get back in range. So Tracy just feels that there needs to be a mandatory class, just like there is for CPR, and there should be emergency hypoglycemia kit in every classroom in case of a lockdown. Thank you.
Could you give us Ms. McGee's address?
I do not.
Or is it, no, that's part of what we asked for. Is it Stafford?
I don't know.
Her address?
Yes.
I don't have it on.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have it on me.
Is her child in Stafford school?
She said Spotsylvania, right?
No, no, Tracy.
Yeah, she's Spotsylvania.
Spotsylvania, okay, thank you. All right, Emily McGee, is Emily here? I know you spoke for Tracy. I guess she's not here. All right, the next speaker is Liza Below, and followed by Brandy Quirk.
Hi, good evening. My name is actually Jessica Vance. I'm speaking for Liza as she is not in today. My daughter Amelia is in kindergarten at Kate Waller Barrett Elementary, and she is also diabetic. My address is 118 Mayfair in Stafford. So I'm here representing for Amelia and all of the other diabetic families in the area. So I'm going to go ahead and read Liza's statement for you. Our lives are defined by moments. We take mental snapshots of significant life events, our first date, our first kiss, our wedding day, our birth of our first child, and so on. These moments define the way that we live. One such moment happened when my son, Ethan, was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at the age of 3. It was December 2013, Christmas time, a time of the year when all is supposed to be joyous and merry. But for our household, we were sitting in a hospital room trying to wrap our minds around a diagnosis of an incurable disease that will forever change our family. The sleepless nights, the worry, the adjustments, and the knowledge that the decisions that I make could kill my child, but every day by making those same decisions, I save my child's life. It is bittersweet. I am not a healthcare professional. I am a mom with a responsibility so grand, it's impossible to wrap your mind around all the management that this disease entails. Blood sugar checks, carb counting, pump site changes, insulin adjustments, and dosing, and those are just the main tasks that we take in every day, in addition to the already thankless job of being a mother. The children didn't ask to be medically fragile. They didn't ask for this disease. It just happened, and we don't know why. Sending our children to school is a particular source of anxiety because we believe there should be no difference in the quality of care that our children receive at home and what they receive at school. Our children are mature beyond their years because they know that any mishap could lead to a serious complication or they could die. Our school nurses and staff are incredibly important in maintaining the standard of care for our kids. They should receive the training and authority to care for our children like we do at home. Should a site pump become dislodged, the school nurse should be allowed to assist our children in replacing those sites. They should know how to stop the insulin in case that the blood sugar drops to a dangerous level. Having glucagon stocked in our schools is just an extra layer of protection that ensures that our children are safe at school. No one should see their children laying in a hospital bed because of a nurse's inability to treat their child's needs or a staff member's lack of knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vance. The next speaker is Brandy Quirk, followed by Jeffrey Trigger, Dana Brown, and Paul Waldowski.
This is my little eagle. My name is Brandy Quirk. I reside at 132 Stableside Lane, George Washington District. I'm here to talk about the Ferry Farm rebuild. So I found the version 10 large capital project list for 2020 to 2029 CIP. It was dated 11/7/2018. Version 10. So I added all up these numbers. The renovation phase 1, 9.9, 1.8 over budget now. The 8.045 million for phase 2 and phase 3 to 4 in 2029 for 10.379 million. That totals 28,324,000. We know back in 2014 we were going to get a new school and it was going to cost 25 million. So now that's all changed, right? If you add that through our infrastructure for the FFES CIP, I've included those copies for you, it gets you that 4.6 million, it gets you to 32,924,000. And you'll see in that FFES rebuild and renovation found on the government site, sorry there's no date, someone posted it without a date, but you could probably look at the server of when it was posted, kind of get an idea. Or the assistant superintendent might have a date for you. So it says the open date of 2022 is 38.8 million. Wow, how about that? So you add up all those renovations and the infrastructure, that 3R infrastructure list, and it gets you to like where we would be for the 2022. Okay, so now moving on. I got that nice little photograph for you. It was taken on November 8th. I marked it on the back, taken by me. And there was a question with regards to the the educational specifications documentation. It says on the website that this is provided for people to build and blah, blah, blah. You can find it on there. But here's where it ends. It says consider these guidelines in conjunction with the Stafford County Public Schools Facilities Design Document. Here you go. So this picture is just to point out one thing, and I gave you a copy of that. The The faculty, administrative, student, and visitor parking areas need to comply with providing areas of parking outside of maybe like public streets. We do a lot of public street parking at Ferry Farm Elementary School for all of our events and then some. And then we have these wheel stops being mounted, approval as an exception. If you take a look at that picture, I drive an extra long Ford F-250. Thank God I have a camera on there. I would hate to see someone roll back or hit the gas and go forward on that. So thank you very much and look
You're
forward
welcome
to seeing you again.
Ms. Hall.
Thanks.
Okay. Jeffrey Trigger.
Hello, my name is Jeffrey Trigger, and I live in the George Washington District. I speak to you tonight as an educator within the county. In the following few months, the county will have to make some enormous decisions about the future of our schools. Some of these decisions will have an immediate impact, and others will be more gradual. Some will be popular, and some will no doubt leave a bad taste in the mouths of residents. And you will have to remember that decisions have to be made for the greater good. The first decision on your plate is going to be school redistricting. No matter what decision you make, I know it won't be popular with many people. However, the time has come and worrying about max capacity is unacceptable. I'm going to give my opinion here. Development in the county is going to advance quickly, regardless if you decide to build schools or not. I can assure you we cannot wait until the 2030s to build new schools. We will need to be honest with ourselves and start planning for this growth now. The second decision on your plate is the salary plan for all the employees of Stafford County Public Schools. I support SCA and the 5% salary increase suggestion for all our employees. Paras get no breaks and oftentimes have to reteach material to groups of students. Bus drivers are the bedrock of all of our students, ensuring the safety to and from school. Cafeteria staffs feed hundreds, if not thousands, of students every day. Our custodians make our schools inviting every day. Office staffs make our admins look great and do a lot of paperwork, so we teachers don't have to. Speaking of teachers, the number of new teachers we have to hire seems to grow every year. No ifs, ands, or buts. Salaries need to reflect the respect of all employees. The last decision you're going to have to make is actual policy for all students, regardless of race, gender, religion, or LGBTQ status. Our students deserve respect, and our staff deserves direction. We can make Stafford County a first by enacting such a policy. Led Zeppelin has a famous song with the lyrics, "There are two paths you can go by, but in the long run, there's still time to change the road you're on." Let's put Stafford on the right path. Thanks.
Dana Brown, followed by Paul Wadowski.
Hi, I'm Dana Brown. I live at 41 St. Williams Way. I'm here tonight because I want to ask you to defer approval of the high school course catalog tonight. Last meeting, you were asked, you asked staff why they would bring it to you so early, and I think you were told something along the lines of, well, because we're starting school early next year. Well, that's true, but we're not getting out early this year, and we're not registering kids any earlier. And occasionally, we've waited to approve this course catalog well into the new year. I have a couple of reasons for requesting this. The first one is it's based on, for previous years, I think some staff members may think that it's a way to preempt any program reductions you might be planning for next year. They figure if they get it in now, maybe they have to put it off for another year. Second is we are still experiencing load balancing problems with our master schedule. Big ones. And this could be what's hindering you from getting a new high school. You are not utilizing the space you have efficiently. I've been requesting the master schedule for the last 3 years, and it's revealed that many classes are under the minimum class size. And every year you guys talk about that, and staff tells you you have to have 15 to make a class. The teacher load and the student load are way out of balance. And it's very unfair for teachers. Some have huge teaching loads and some have very small ones. I shared this with Dr. Benson when he was here, and each year Dr. Benson said it would get fixed, and he told you, the school board, that staff was going to undergo retraining of the master schedule over the summer. Well, after it wasn't fixed the first time, Dr. Benson made them do it a second summer. He was not happy about that. Then the third year was this past year. It's still not fixed. We did get a new guy. Maybe they figured they could go back to their old ways because no one was watching. But we are offering way too many classes with not enough students to fill them, not enough to make a class. And just so I'm not misquoted again, this is not special ed classes. This is causing us to waste a teaching position and a classroom. And as a result, it's forcing more overcrowding into core classes. And this might give parents a false perception of overcrowding in the school. I barely scratched the surface of the reports, which this is how big they are, but I want to share a few examples. In some of our high schools, we have a classroom 601 has a class with 6 students, a class with 14 students. Classroom 112 has a class with 5 students, yes, 5 students, 10 students, 8 students. Room 315 has another one with 5 students. 327 has a class with 10, class with 12, and I could go on and on, but I'm running out of time. One of the things I really want to make clear is that we have some teachers teaching 144 students, and then we have other teachers teaching in the high 30s and in the 40s. That's not right. We got to fix that.
Thank you, Ms. Brown.
My entertainment for the week, Paul Wildowski, 8 Picket Lane, the selected chairman of the 2030 Cicadas, who I now know that some of them have type 1 diabetes. You know, insulin's got the word in it twice. I keep telling you the word in is important because our students need to take Latin. And in is in the word brain. And I'll leave it at that. I keep seeing all this data, but it never formulates into information. Golly. Maybe we need some dimes to go with the nickels that we're using on this methodology. I keep hearing about redistricting. I'm a member of One Virginia 2019. Gerrymandering's going away. There's not going to be 7 of you, I promise you. There'll be 5 of you, and one will be an elected school board member. They already took my model. It's pretty interesting. I spend my day at election day. I've never been to Ferry Farms before, but I really enjoyed the talk about Ferry Farms. I know it's 61 years old, but schools are built to last 100 years. Get with the program, folks. But listen to the numbers. There are facts. It's not fake news. I know on election day there's a blue puddle that hit the red wall. You know, life happens. Things are changing. Just fascinating what's going on. Now, I heard a very neat speech at the Board of Supervisors, excuse me, I had a Freudian slip last week. And our school bus drivers are running red lights. And national tragedies have happened. And I told you about bus 48. It's not a prime number. It's bus 47. Could probably teach 48 to use the cul-de-sac. I've also brought up to you about VDOT. I'm tired of the high schoolers in my area who don't have the sign. We have plenty of wet water. Give me the authority, I'll pull out the sign. No problem, I'll move it. I already did the sod in my yard. That's what Mother Nature's here for. And one final thing, your methodologies are so terrible. You need to use what are called integers, because human beings aren't 0.5. Yes, 0.5 is good for part-time employees. That's a nice number. But human beings are not 0.5. I'm a Vietnam vet. Trust me, even when someone loses a leg, they're not 0.8.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board? I'm sorry.
I know I spoke for Tracy.
Oh,
For myself, is that
well, we only have one per person. Sure.
It's a positive one.
All right, we'll close the public comment period and come back to the board for Student Discipline Committee report. Mr. McOsker.
On October 18th, the committee of the board met to consider 2 student disciplinary matters. The committee permitted student A to participate in the regional alt ed program. For student B, the committee lifted the expulsion effective at the end of the first semester of the 2018-2019 school year and converted it to suspension for the remainder of the 2018-2019 school year, which is held in abeyance, conditioned upon the student being of good behavior while attending school.
Thank you, Mr. McOsker. That brings us to school board committee reports. Now, this is for committees of the school board. If you want to address advisory committees, you can do that in your board member comments. We have one school board committee that has met since our last meeting, and that's the Finance and Budget Committee that met on November 1st. Do you have a report for us, Dr. Chase?
I do. We heard a presentation from the Stafford Education Association at our last meeting, and I want to thank Ms. Decatur for facilitating this. They gave us their rationale for lobbying for an across-the-board 5% raise. This would cost the school system about $11 million. To put that in perspective, last year the school system received a $10.5 million increase. If this were going to be paid for with real estate taxes, the tax rate would have to be increased 7.3 cents. The owner of a medium-priced house would see a $215 increase in their annual real estate tax. Mr. Fulmer then presented us with the teacher market comparison. The good news is that our teacher salaries are currently right at the median of the market for our 8 comparison divisions. The bad news, I asked Mr. Fulmer to present us with how we compare with just Spotsylvania and Prince William counties. I requested this information because when teachers leave Stafford, they go to Spotsylvania or Prince William. They don't go to Albemarle or Chesterfield. We are nowhere near the middle of Prince William and Spotsylvania counties' salary scales. In order to get to the middle of this market, we would need $22 million, and that would just cover teachers and no other employees. So that's the bad news, but we don't fix things if we don't look at the problem, and so that is the problem that we have. And then we talked about the CIP, but I believe that's coming for action, so maybe we can hold that conversation to when we get there. And that's it.
Thank you, Dr. Chase. That brings us to board member comments. Ms. Egan, would you like to start us?
Sure. I wasn't going to say much, but the first half of the agenda was so exciting. I just wanted to say, I wanted to personally thank all the folks who got awarded their pins tonight. That's quite an accomplishment, especially in this day and age. Not too many people stay in jobs for a long time anymore, so kudos to you guys. Mr. Ralph, you're going to make an awesome AD, and I don't know if you're watching or if you're home celebrating, but congratulations to you. Alex Goshorn, congratulations and thank you for your contribution. And one last, Pat Fredette, who is a civics teacher at Stafford Middle School. She did her 30-year pin tonight, and she's amazing. She survived 2 Egan boys, so congratulations to her. And just a note that CIP Advisory Committee is meeting this Thursday, provided the weather cooperates with us. So that's it. Thanks.
Dr. Chase.
Sure. Whoops, there we go. It's been a busy month. I was invited to judge 8th grade debates at A.G. Wright and Drew Middle Schools. My 3 children all participated in this, and it was great to see that it's still going on. I was so impressed with our students' performance. Their hard work showed, and I want to thank Mr. Long and Mr. Washington for inviting me to participate. And I want to wish all the 8th grade students good luck if they're participating in countywide debates tomorrow night. And I wish I could be there, but I'll be with my fellow board members at the annual conference of the Virginia School Board Association. I had the opportunity to meet with parents and teachers at Falmouth last week to discuss the upcoming elementary school redistricting and the budget, and I think it was a good discussion. I want to thank Katie Willis, the president of the Falmouth PTO, for inviting me. If there are any other PTOs or PTAs for schools in the Falmouth district that would like me to come by, just let me know. Last Wednesday, I was across the street when the Board of Supervisors announced that Stafford County has now achieved a triple A bond rating. This is great news because it means Stafford will get the lowest possible interest rate when borrowing money for construction projects. So it has taken 12 years to reach this goal, so way to go supervisors and county staff. Then Saturday, I participated in the Stafford Education Foundation 5K Run Walk. My husband and I walked. Miss Young beat me, but funds from this event will go to support our schools. And then finally, November is Take Your Legislator to School Month. Today, I toured Grafton Elementary School with my state delegate, Bob Thomas. I want to thank him for taking the time to visit our schools and educate himself about the issues facing Stafford County Public Schools. And of course, thank you, Principal Sidebotham, for being such a wonderful host. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Hazard?
Let's see, I'll start off with the thank yous. That's always the nice part to start with. Thank you, of course, to our wonderful staff members, those who have the 25-plus years. It's always wonderful to see them. I always think that those who are in transportation and you have over 30 years should get an additional something. I'm not sure what. But thank you to all of those who were there. Also, I want to thank those who have served, our veterans, and especially I'd like to thank our schools for the wonderful programs. There were a variety of programs that went on through our school district. I had the honor to attend Rocky Run Elementary, and Delegate Thomas came and presented the award that Rocky Run was not the only school that about being a Purple Heart and military-friendly school, which is such a wonderful honor for us, and us recognizing as a school district with our proximity to Quantico and the many bases in the area, that's something we invest in, and I think that's certainly one of our worthy things that we do. So thank you to those who have served, and thank you for those who put on amazing programs. They always should put me in the front row, because when the kids were singing the song, a little choked up, I will say. Mr. McCosker, you can say that Mr. Thomas had a little, he was a little, wow, he said that was great singing. So anyway, that was absolutely wonderful. I was not trying to just get out of running on the Stafford Education Foundation, although I could see the eye, but I was had the wonderful honor to present to Stephen Dean and be at his Eagle Scout ceremony that morning with Mr. Cohen, who also presented something to Stephen. And that was just a wonderful opportunity to see our kids excel outside of our school district, because part of what makes them amazing people is what they learn within our buildings, but are they taking it out in their community? And just want to thank all those Eagle Scouts and all those scouts who do that. So those are all the fun things. I'd just like to also mention something. I know that the board is coming back at some point about what our metrics are going to be for redistricting. I know we have mentioned free and reduced lunch data as being at least a point of information. I don't know if that's... I would really like the board to also consider our ESL population and that percentage within some of the schools, having looked at some of the ADM reports from in the past, so I could only speak somewhat to those. But I think that that is also something we need to recognize, having heard in the schools and from teachers that many students now are coming at an ESL level. I think they call it a level 1. And that is a lot of services for our students, that we need those pull-out spaces and those pull-out space challenges throughout our buildings. And I believe that we need to make sure when we redistrict, we do not redistrict to something that we potentially handicap a school that has certain needs within it that needs additional space. I know I've spoken in the past saying maybe some of those schools need to have a lower percentage when we're looking at the distribution, but I would just ask the board to consider free and reduced lunch data. Also, obviously we've spoken about, but I think that ESL data might be also instructive to us. I know that we did have a speaker speak about speak poorly of our bus drivers, but I would like to actually do the reverse. Our bus drivers are challenged every day by cars passing them, and I know that is one of our legislative priorities. There has been some discussion. Senator Vogel actually reached out to me because Folkier, Loudon, all the places that she represents have these as their legislative priorities. So just want to say we're hearing you. This is actually, I have been told some bus drivers have started a petition because they are so concerned. So I just want to say we hear you and are looking into it. I'm looking forward to going to the Virginia School Board Association and meeting with other colleagues who have these programs in their school districts. And finally, just attended the Board of Supervisors revenue projection presentation. I think there's a lot of information that we as a board need to examine, and will give us some real clues of where we may be in the spring, and some of the arguments we need to be making to increase that number.
Thank you,
Thank
Ms.
you.
Hazard. Ms. Decatur.
Hi. Good evening, everyone. I got back at about 2 o'clock today from a 20-hour drive from Key West with 2 children. If anyone's ever considering doing that, I don't recommend it.
How old are they?
So, yeah, 3 and 6 months. That was fun. Thank you to all of the teachers that were awarded with their pins this evening, as well as all those that have not made it there yet, but are pushing their way through, sticking with us in this county. We appreciate you and everything you do. I don't take it lightly that I sit up here and make a lot of the decisions that greatly impact your every day in our county. We appreciate you. There was one more thing I wrote down. Oh, right, yeah, so that's why I'm always honored and more than willing to open up any avenues of communication. So thank you to the SEA for coming, presenting to us. I don't recall hearing them talk about raising taxes as part of their, I could have missed something, but I think they had some really great ideas as far as revenues were concerned. And anyways, I'm eager to see what Dr. Kisner and everyone come up with for the budget presentation.
Thank you. Ms. Young.
Good evening, everyone. I also want to thank all PIN staff and those not pinned as yet. That was a joke. Anyway. I attended the Technology Advisory Committee. I wasn't sure if I gave an update last time, but I did wanted to make it anyway. Met with Mark, principal from Stafford Middle, and also met with the ITRT and the CTT. We had presentations from several teachers. Kudos to those teachers: Kathy Mason, 6th grade math, Kim Andros, 6th and 8th grade English and reading, and Sarah Halwa, 8th grade math. So we also had student representatives, which is really great. Emma Devine, ITS and IS student intern, and Jared Nees from Virginia Star. He's the Star president. Looking forward to going over to the Technology Strategic Plan. Oh, he disappeared. Okay. Oh, there you are. Yeah. I'm looking forward to getting it so we could go over that. Additionally, over the weekend, I attended the Stafford Education Foundation 5K also with Miss Sarah and Dr. Kisner for a little bit. And it was to run to promote food drive as well as benefit the SEF using the funds for innovative teacher grants, classroom support, and student scholarships. Thank you, Walter. Also, Cherie and her team for putting this together. And also those students from Mount Vernon, they were Mountain View, sorry. They were amazing, almost at Mount Vernon. And also Band Together to Fight Hunger. That was on November the 5th, 2018. So that was a great success. We raised a lot of money, and I'm sure food banks can use more as well as canned foods, more money as well as canned food for this upcoming holiday season. So that's all I think I had. Yeah, thank you.
Mr. McOsker.
Okay, thanks. Congratulations to the PIN recipients. Good job. Keep up the good work. Tom Cohn, Mr. Tom Cohn is our supervisor now, for the elected supervisor by the people for the George Washington District.
For 2 months.
And then he has to rerun again for the next year, so he's got a lot of fun ahead of him. But I wanted to pass on that he was officially into the position. He was the election is official as of today, and he wants to be sworn in at Colonial Forge because he is a teacher at Colonial Forge High School. He wants to be sworn in at Colonial Forge at 9:30 next Monday, and he wants to offer the extended invite for all the school board members. He would love to see if you guys are come, and I'll forward this email over to you. He would love to have you there if Dr. Kisner permits.
Only if we get 5% for the teachers.
If you can. So, you know, and what he says is, he says, hey, this is an excellent opportunity for my government students to see more about the government process. So, anyway, so congratulations to him. It was a good win. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. McOsker, and I'll keep mine short for a change. Congratulations to all the pin recipients that were recognized tonight, as well as the recipients who will receive their pins at school. That's the 5, 10, 15, and 20-year employees. It is very, I don't know what to say. I'm very grateful for the service and your being with Stafford County Public Schools. We hear a lot about the turnover, but you can see that we do have staff who are with us for significant amounts of time. So thank you. You really do make a difference. And I have to say that when the bus drivers came up, I just said I really admire what they do every day. I mean, those buses are a challenge, not just the bus itself, which I can't imagine driving, but, you know, the number of students in there and the paraphernalia that they have to bring if they have musical instruments or backpacks or, you know, different size students that we have. It's incredible, and I think I echo Ms. Hazard. I think we hear a lot about the complaints about transportation, but not so much about how they are doing their job. And I think if you look at the statistics, it's pretty much very high in what they're doing to get those 4 or 5,000 of the 28 that we have. Well, we have 28,000, but there's
It's about 15,000 on the road, 230 buses. We're doing a great job.
Yeah, it's amazing. So thank you, and thank you to our transportation director, who it's amazing he has any hair, but he made it through the beginning of school, and I know, and I don't want to call them complaints, but the issues that were brought to my attention, I forwarded to Dr. Kisner, and they were resolved quickly, and I believe satisfactory, because I didn't have a follow-up, from the people that made the initial inquiries. Also wanted to thank all our veterans, including Mr. McOsker, for your service to our country, to our community. We are very blessed here in Stafford to have a large number of military families with us, and I think they bring a lot to our schools and are very appreciative of their choosing to be in Stafford while their tour of duty is in this area. And also recognize what the schools do for those presentations. It's a shame it's all pretty much on one day, because we can't get to as many as I think we'd all like to do, but it's great to see our students and our staff celebrating, our military accomplishments and personnel. That brings us to the superintendent's comments. Dr. Kisner.
Okay, thank you. I just got my 2-month pin, so I'm getting better.
Oh, you don't get a pin for 2 months.
So, there's so many things going on that I'm not even sure if we have even officially recognized. And you should be proud of it. I know in Stafford, we often make this accomplishment, but it's not, good things happen by design and not so good things happen by design. That's one of my beliefs. So all our schools are fully accredited, both at the state and federal level. Our on-time graduation rate continues to improve. Our dropout rate continues to decline. And all of the indicators are suggesting strongly that the people that you praised tonight and the students that we're honored to have, in most cases, are being very successful. And there's other indicators, but those are the ones that were held accountable. I also want to just talk very, very briefly that we had our Equity, Diversity, Opportunity Committee. I'm not sure, I might change that name a little bit. I had to get 3 people to help me what the name was. But so as I talk about the accomplishments, we also recognize that when we disaggregate the data, we do have some children that are not being as successful as we'd like. So we are designing a equity dashboard that will help us really, if you think of your car dashboard, you know when you're running out of gas, you know when your oil light goes on, you know if you have a low tire warning. it's an indicator that keeps reminding us on how successful either we're being or not being. And we've looked at 3 school systems, Arlington, Alexandria, and Harrisonburg, and we're kind of landing on the Arlington model. And we're having a presentation, I think, next week to learn about it. So we'll talk a lot more about it, but we brought this up at the committee, and they were very excited, and we showed them what it could potentially look like. I do want to quickly mention, so I think all of you, or most of you, got the book, End of Average. So I would really encourage you to read it. You'll get a sense of some of the comments that I might be making, some of the comments that you heard tonight. Average is just one way as a descriptive indicator. We heard a comment tonight, and again, I'm just making a comment on a comment. When we have classes of 10, 12, 14, 16, I would at least ask you to be thinking those children in those classes are benefiting. Okay, I have no idea what the classes are, to be honest with you. I have an idea of at least one of them, because I had a chance to speak at one of those classes, and I could tell you those children that I spoke to are benefiting from that class. So if we just make a number and say, we go above this number, the class should not continue, then I'm just saying that we're really talking about children and learning, and I would just ask us to keep that always, that our decisions need to be student-centered, okay? That's what I'm asking. And then on the school website, we have the redistricting link, and our first meeting, which really was an opportunity to tell the public why we're redistricting, where we are today. But we originally scheduled it for November 29th, and 2 of our board members will not be in town. So we are moving it to December 5th. But then we have scheduled meetings in January, and before we go send out flyers to parents announcing it, could you please look at the dates, because we have them at middle schools, and if it's a middle school that you represent, and if you know you're going to be out, we'll switch it, okay? But we'd rather switch it now than send the information, then have to re-switch. So it's right on our website, just go to redistricting. And we chose middle schools intentionally, it's this way no one could say we picked an elementary school and a lot of parents from that elementary school showed up, okay? Anyway, I'll just end it on this. I've had an opportunity, and I do thank Dr. Chase for going today. When you, and I know all of you do this, when you walk into the classrooms, you see exciting teaching and learning. And you see really great things that I believe if our public had more opportunities to observe what we get to observe, we would begin to see, and you have a lot of support already, but you would begin to see support accelerate, because people like to support a winning team. I know that. I'm a New York Met fan, okay? And being with the New York Yankees, I know what happens. So I say this because I like to invite the public into our schools and see the excitement that's taking place. So I think that will not only help us during the budget time, but I think it will help be ambassadors for the really good things that take place. So anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kisner. That brings us to action items. 10.01, approve the 2019-2020 high school program of studies / high school course catalog. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve 10.01.
Motion by Ms. Egan. Do we have a second?
I'll second for discussion.
Okay, we have a second by Ms. Hazard for discussion. Now we can have discussion since we have a motion on the floor. Would you like to begin the discussion, Ms. Hazard?
Oops, okay. One thing that I did see as we were looking at the program, which I wanted to just note for anybody who has, certainly concerns. I'm sorry, this is sort of, my screen isn't going, but I believe in the write-up for this, it talked about that there can be changes made to this, I'm sorry, it was in like yellow, but I can't get that, that screen to.
Do you want me to read it to you, or?
That would be great, because I literally, oh, there it is, now it's come up, okay. It was really stuck. If changes by the Virginia Department of Education, the school board, or other affiliated organizations necessitate revisions to the high school program of studies, the revisions will be included in as an addendum to the original document. And I think that's just something good for us to at least consider.
I know, and I don't want to bring up a, sore point with anybody, I know that there is still some, at least some, and I don't know how strong, that for the firefighting program, for us to at least reconsider, to relook at it. We have a new fire chief. I have seen him in, on a back-to-school night, so.
Let me just touch upon that.
Is it okay?
It's in our program of studies.
Right.
I have met with the fire chief. You have been presented this in the past. It really will, I could tell you a preview. I will put this in my budget. It will be up to the next steps. But I just wanted you to be aware that it's already in our program studies, so it will then be determined. How I understand it, the county is willing to fund half of it, and an expectation that the school system funds the other half. I don't know if you were aware that was in the program studies.
I thought that it was, and then when I went
Yeah.
back, I have to say, I was reading
Yeah.
through. But I think that that's something still, though, important to say that, and that cuts both ways. There could be something in there that come, the spring, we may move the other way. So in
Right.
some sense, it's glad it was in there, and that was the point. But I think that is something to think about. I do believe there is some help as we are looking at our middle school numbers, which we have all commented on as going up. I know where my daughters attended, our middle school counselor was amazing and met with every parent and child if they, took the opportunity to do that. With more students, there may need to be more time. So that's just something I would say. I'm open to other comments by board members, but I am saying middle school numbers going up, meeting with all 8th graders, that does take some time, so maybe something to think about. Just my comment.
Mr. Gator? Ms. Young?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman Healy. I did have a note in here about the fire class, and wasn't there a note at the bottom that stated that if we don't fill it, so how are we planning on, was there like a waiting list or something? Like, how are we planning on getting the students in that class?
Okay, well,
And
okay,
where
so
were they
first,
coming from?
yeah, so first we have to fund it.
Okay.
So that
That
part we
wasn't
haven't done. And, yeah, I've asked the fire chief, he's gonna come in front of you, okay? But I just didn't think tonight was the right meeting, okay?
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
And then the other comment I had was, weren't we planning on having a work session for IB? Right?
IB, AP.
Yeah, and so I'm seeing these, I would like to get that information before this is on information or is it on action?
This is on for action.
This is on for action.
Yeah, I want to have that work session to understand that better.
Madam Chair, regardless of what we do with any of the programs, we're not just going to cut it off at the knees and not give any of our
course
current
not.
kids an opportunity to finish their coursework. So I don't think it matters whether it's in here or not. It's not something that we're going to tackle. This is completely different than what we're going to study and when we're going to implement, if we're going to implement anything to be changed. So
This is for next
I think
year,
I think we're holding staff up by not getting this taken care of.
Thank you. Do you have any other?
Nope, that's it.
Dr. Chase? Or, Ms. Egan, do you have any other comments? No. Dr. Chase?
So I just want to make sure, I think Ms. Young commented on this, but last year we had in our program of studies a note that said that if we can't, don't have enough students for the class, or if we can't find teachers for the class, that those classes may not be offered. Is that still the case? Okay, so we should be good there. So yeah, I just double checking that was still there. And my other thing is just to make sure that the program of studies the accurate program of studies is on the website. So.
Mr. McOsker?
Nothing on the program of studies. I think it's been discussed by the board members pretty eloquently. Dr. Kisner, though, I do think, and this is for the record, and that's why I'm saying it on the dais, I do think that we have some room to improve on our scheduling for the high schools. I think, I'm not talking about class sizes, you know, because we've all had that discussion about, hey, there's 8 kids in this class, oh, by the way, it's calculus 3 or calculus 2, or, you know, so I get it, but I do think across the division, we do have some room for improvement, and that's something that's been promised over the years that we discuss, and it's never quite made it to the board level. I don't know if that's maybe not the appropriate place for it. So I just ask that you please look into that sometime this year and with your senior staff and try to come up with some, what are we doing right and what are we doing wrong, at least on it. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. And along that line, I'd like to get some information about the parity among the schools. I mean, I agree, smaller classes are fantastic, but if we have a smaller class, if we have a class of 10 and then we have to have averages of 38, you know, who is that fair to? So I would like to know, you know, where the smaller classes are. I think sometimes these numbers may not be as straightforward as they appear, because sometimes we have blended classes where we may have, you know, a teacher teaching a 2 levels in one class, so it may show you have a class of 7 and a class of 10, but in reality, you know, the same time and the same teacher.
Yeah,
So-
I'm glad you brought it up, because that actually happens more often than I think people see, that you do blend a level 3 and a level 4, for example, in the same, but we will provide you that. I guess my only comment is if we set a number and we go below that number, that could be interpreted as not good. And if we go above that number, that could be interpreted as not good. And what I'm just suggesting is an average means you have variability. That's all I'm really saying. So not all the numbers, not all of the classes are going to have the same number. And you know, I could talk about this all day long, but we will bring you forward the information you're seeking. I just get a little worried when we set a number, because we begin to, and I'm not saying you're thinking this way, I'm thinking that maybe some other school board would be thinking this way, that we're thinking more the number than the children, okay? Because I know, for example, one of the classes I spoke to was a research class, a statistics research class. 8 students in that class. That's,
What school was that?
all the schools are the same to me. It was a high school, okay? I couldn't find my way to Grafton today because my ways kept taking me to a flooded road. And finally, like 4 times I was going down a flooded road, so.
You need to change your phone.
I know we have a lot of schools, and I just stop at a school and say.
Gotta throw the flip phone away.
Yeah.
Throw that phone in the river.
But my point really being
Talk
is
to
like,
transportation, they'll get you there.
if the objective maybe should be, how do we get more students into that class? Versus the other way of thinking is, if we only have 8, can we afford to have that class? Because that's a very important class for these 8 young people, knowing what their pathway will be, just like we would have a class, and I hate to even use this example, for another, I won't even mention it, another group of children, because we know they need it, they need a small class. So I understand the budget balance, believe me, I understand and I get it. I'm just, don't want you to take criticism, and I surely don't want our high school principals and school counselors to start taking away things because we're under a certain number, okay?
My only concern is that I just want all the schools to have some kind of even keel in terms of what classes are being offered and how many students are in those classes, because there are some areas in some high schools that have more programs than others, so I just want some type of equality. That's my goal.
And many, many years ago, we did have a informal, maybe standard, that if a class was going to be below 15, it had to be approved by the superintendent. I recall that, because at that point, we had a lot of single-digit classes, and then we had other classes, you know, with much higher numbers. So I'm not suggesting we go back to that, but I, you know, agree with my colleagues. I think we need to have some kind of parity, because I understand the need for these classes, and particularly if students are going into certain areas that they need to have, you know, this preparation, but I don't want to do it at the expense of other students who may be in a much higher class because we do have limited funding.
Right, and let me just, because you know me well enough now that I just feel like I want to finish a thought. Parity could be interpreted as equal. And a lot of our conversations, as I already talked about, a committee you started last year, is about equity. And I don't want us to sometimes confuse equity with equal, because what equity would say, in a certain school, a group of children have, a class has been identified to be important for a group of students. At another school, that maybe another class was identified to be. Some of it is a result of the qualifications of the teacher. Okay, sometimes for the 5 high schools, we may not have the credentials we need to offer everything. But when I hear the word parity, because I've been hearing that a lot here, that sometimes is in conflict with the term equity. And I'm not here to lecture, I'm just saying, in my mind, I'm wrestling with that term parity, because it almost says we want to treat everybody the same. And that's what I don't think we really want to do, okay? You have some magnet programs in your schools, and that was a decision of previous boards, maybe some of you were on it, okay? So it shouldn't surprise us greatly if you see certain percentages of kids in a certain program, because that's where the program's located. Now, it would be a good question to ask is, because I've seen this at some of the high schools, they don't offer that many AP classes. And that does raise a thing to me, say, okay, why are those kids that are at that school have a very limited AP menu compared to one, because AP, I don't believe we transport, right? No. So we will talk about this over time, but
And that's what that
parity.
work session will do. It
Yeah.
will help
Yeah.
you
Okay, I'll
understand
stop
what we're
there.
dealing with, what those programs are concerned.
And when I say parity, maybe I should say equal opportunity. I don't want a student to not have the same opportunities because they're at one high school and not at another. Put aside, the IB schools and the APX schools, but just generally. I know it's site-based, but I think there needs to be some type of review at your level or your senior staff's level about, how these numbers are being set, particularly if they're closer to the single digits than the double digits.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cato.
Yeah, well, I would just add, because I feel like I'm probably on my own here. I wanted to applaud you in everything you just said, but you kept going and then the time passed, so it would have been weird. But you made me want to give you an applause for all of your comments just now, so I thought I would just mention that.
Thank you.
Okay, all right. No further discussion. We have a motion for approval of the 2019-2020 High School Program of Studies High School Course Catalog. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 10.02, approve the 2020-2029 CIP, Large Project and Infrastructure Project Priorities. Dr. Chase, did you want to, or make a motion?
Yeah, I move that we approve the CIP priorities.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion by Dr. Chase, second by Ms. Young. Any discussion?
A question. When I opened up the spreadsheet and I saw the Heartwood thing on here, it didn't say rebuild or renovate, it just says renovate. Did we change that?
Yeah, we were asked to do one or the other, and so I reached out to both board members who were on the FAB and asked what was the preference. I heard back from one, I did not hear back from the other, but we went with renovate because there's a general feeling that we aren't rebuilding Ferry Farm. There's a general sort of feeling that rebuilding is not particularly popular. So that's why that change was made.
So,
We just rebuilt Moncure on another site, and my constituents can't wait to get into it.
so I think
Dairy
it's
Farm
different.
wants to be rebuilt too.
I
but
think
we
it's
said no.
different.
But you can't
It's
say
different
that.
strokes for different folks. Every project has its own, and we can't continue. I will not support continuing on with this tit for tat, 7 board members, you got it, you can't have it, and this whole thing that's going on. This is a location against location because you didn't get it, so you can't have it. I'm not going to continue to support that. You heard from me before I left the meeting. I said if it changes from a rebuild to a renovate, I will not support it. I spoke before I left the meeting. The meeting was recorded. My opinion did not change. This is a very different circumstance than Ferry Farm. Now, if I would have heard point blank from staff that Ferry Farm really required a rebuild, and I would have heard that the constituents of Ferry Farm majority, all right, 20-hour drive, supported a rebuild, I would have supported a rebuild. For the same reasons I support a rebuild for Heartwood. I heard overwhelmingly from staff that Heartwood needs to be rebuilt for a boatload of reasons that I don't think we need to take the time again to go into. So, no, I don't support a renovate just because Ferry Farm got a renovate. That's not how we do things. That's not how I do things.
And I don't think we can send this over with a straight face. I don't think anybody on the Board of Supervisors is going to look at us and say, oh, sure, we're going to rebuild, or we're going to renovate a school that's on septic and water and outside of the urban services area. That kind of encourages more sprawl and all that other stuff. People say, oh, yeah, we're going to build all these houses around Heartwood. Well, we don't want them there. We want them inside the urban services area where we can cluster them and support these subdivisions. And I'm sorry, but I'm just telling you, I'm not going to vote for this because the Board of Supervisors are going to laugh their butts off at us.
I would note that the Board of Supervisors have asked us why we are proposing a rebuild of one elementary school plus another brand-new elementary school. So
Well, I would just add, I also don't make decisions based on who's going to laugh or what they're going to ask. We have data and facts and figures that support the need for additional elementary schools, or at least we did when I looked at it and decided that this was what needed to happen. I think we've had overwhelming information to support the additional elementary space. I also would just add that, well, you guys can continue if I want.
Okay, any other discussion? No, I would just like to note that I was at the Ferry Farms town meeting, and at that meeting, Mr. Haran very clearly stated that he was recommending a rebuild, that he thought a rebuild of Ferry Farms was economically the best way to go, that it needed a rebuild, and the community at Ferry Farms overwhelmingly spoke in support of a rebuild. Yet, we were told by the supervisors that there wasn't funding to rebuild Ferry Farms. I mean, otherwise, Ferry Farms would be a rebuild this year, which is what it was planned for. So if the funding body is saying there's no money for a rebuild, I have no reason to believe that 2 years from now, there's going to be money for a rebuild. And we're saying that we need the renovation or the rebuild, if you want it to go that way, at Heartwood the same year that we want to open Elementary School 18. And the two of them together would be almost $100 million if we had a rebuild. So I just don't see that as being practical. My preference would be to rebuild both of them. But I'm trying to follow the guidance that we've been given. I think it's unfortunate that we are not rebuilding Ferry Farms. I'm not saying don't rebuild Heartwood, because Ferry Farms didn't get rebuilt, but I want to be realistic and practical. And I can't imagine that there would be support from the funding body. And if they want to come back when they get this and tell us we'll fund it, no problem. You know, this can always be changed, but I want to be practical. We know we're going to need elementary school 18, and we have to open here in FY 2028, and we know we have to do something with Hartwood, also scheduled for 2028. So that's why I'm going to support this. There is a significant cost difference in rebuilding versus, you know, renovating. In a perfect world, Hartwood wouldn't have been on water and sewer to begin with, but it has been. We just spent, what, $750,000 for the sewer system at Hartwood. There wasn't any discussion then that we're going to be, you know, moving Hartwood, so we don't have to worry about it. And that was when Mr. Haran told us that the system would work in a few years. There would be some type of break. We didn't have the date because his crystal ball wasn't working that day, but you know, we made an investment there in that septic, which fortunately was a good investment because it's going to, you know, help keep it going for now. So I wish it were a perfect world and we could give our 5% raises and we could build what we want to build and move on, but unfortunately, funding is a restriction and it's something that we have to deal with.
Madam Chair, did I hear that the Board of Supervisors have already passed their CIP with our last year's list in it? Is this all for naught?
I don't know.
Yes, correct.
I sent all of you a letter this afternoon that I got from Mr. Foley. If you haven't had a chance, I would read it. It speaks to exactly what Irene just talked about.
Well, we still have the right, and I would say the duty to send over our list to them. Whether they want to ignore it, you know, is up to them.
Yeah, they've
It's just that it's late.
they've canceled
They're forward.
they've canceled all the oversight meetings and everything else. Yeah.
In that vein, I do have a question of when we are getting these projections that we have promised not only ourselves, but the Board of Supervisors. Mr. Haran, I know, are they coming soon? Date? I mean, will we see them? I mean, we are going to receive on December 11th. I don't think that was the meeting that was canceled. I know I would like to look over those projections before we sit in front of that body arguing for whatever we pass, whether it is this, whether it is not. We have to have our argument, and I know we all may disagree, but I do believe we need to have data. As you all know, I am very concerned about those middle school numbers. If we go 3.5% and 2.2% every year for the next 2 or 3, an elementary school will be an issue, but it's going to be a middle school. And I feel like if we don't start telling, I know this is a map for the future, but a 5% growth in middle school over a 2-year period, we're at what, 84%? Okay, we start to get there. So for me, I know I will personally want to look those over so I know what story we're telling and what our data is stating.
I would just point out that growth in middle school in 4 years will be high school.
Right, and that's what I'm saying, but also so that it continues to move. I don't think, as you know, I've supported that we send over high school 6 and elementary 18. Those are the two I can definitely agree to. I believe that Hartwood, and I'm sure my constituents will scream when this, the number that's in the original one of the 30, 31, I may not like it, but if that ends up being where the growth is, my concern with Hartwood all along is, I have attended 2 meetings in my district about the water table being lowered and wells running out of water. I can tell you, cluster subdivision, all that stuff, that is happening in Hartwood. Now, whether they can stop it, whether they can't, I don't know. But that is of grave concern to me. And in a year where most of us will never think of the word drought, because I don't think I will ever say the word drought in this year, but some of us lived through a drought here in Hartwood, and we were on bottled water, and there were other issues. But that is of concern to me. That does not change, and that is something I believe we need to be very conscious of, that there are some differences. I will probably not be supporting these projects, and Mr. McCosker, and I know that this may come as part of what you said in there too, I don't think we're taking over the best list. I know that you have some creative ways to do this, but I can't approve it how it is now, because I'm not sure these are the right, I'm not saying the numbers, but also, Mr. Haran, as you said, phase 2, or I can't remember if it was only 3 and 4 or 2, 3 and 4, that we have some number in there, but not great. I really don't want to go over and say to the Board of Supervisors, this is how much we need, and be off 22% again. That's not going to go well with us. I want to take over hard numbers and when we need these things. I think our early childhood special education, I'm supportive of the one from before for 21, 22, that time frame. I think we have to see. But again, it comes down to data, and now that we will have separate facilities, maybe we can start to track pre-K numbers better and start doing, and I know we're trying and working on it. Every time you do a set of numbers, hopefully you take lessons from that and you move from that. But I'm just not comfortable walking over, because right now, with this list, I'm not sure I have the data to say this is why. So it is not any, for board members, but based on those reasons, I can't support it, because I couldn't make the argument right now for why all of these are. And Mr. Haran, it's not against you all either. I just feel like we need to say what happened this year.
So I don't think I've said much, so, and I won't say much.
I know it's getting late.
yeah,
We have a long
we have a long
information.
night ahead of us. Good points about everything. The two things that I am supportive of are the first two things on the list. That hasn't changed for me. I think high school 6 and elementary school 18, it will probably be together in Hartwood. In that area, I think it will be. I don't think it's smart. I didn't think it was smart rebuilding Moncure and then a mile down the road saying, yep, a mile up the road, and then the old Moncure just sits there. It wasn't our choice, but that's what happened. And then, oh, by the way, the new site's going to be an Embry Mill in the middle of nowhere, right? So I was always okay with high school number 6, and this was last year when Ferry Farm got a year and a half when Ferry Farm got pulled off the CIP by some board members that are still on the board here, the rebuild, and that was done on purpose, right? We wanted to do the new system and make sure Ferry Farm went away, and I think that's how I felt, and I told you all that, and I said, and revote a new board's priority, and you did, right? So I'm still good with number 1 and number 2. I think the 27s, the 28s, the 29s, I don't think the supervisors right now really, at this point, I think this year, they've written us off, right? I think 1 and 2, I think we still say that's a go. But what I did want to talk to the board about and make sure that we get at least a non-verb or a non-committal, kind of a polling on that the current phase of Ferry Farm is 1.8 million over. After the detailed construction analysis. A good portion of that 1.8 is, I think, is mechanical, which, we've talked to Mr. Haran and some other folks about an AC system is $450,000. So I think we can come up with the money to support the 1.9 or 1.8 it's over, somewhere in there. And I think there may even be some efficiencies that they didn't talk about. So I just wanted to see where the board members were at, Madam Chair, on a polling of, do we support making sure Ferry Farm gets its, if, it is a renovation. We know that if we push it off for a rebuild, it'll never happen. The current, remember the current renovation cost equivalent to Falmouth, Grafton Village is estimated at 30 million or so, right? In today's dollars, if we wait 10 years, it'll be 50 million for the renovation and probably 75 for a rebuild. That's just how it is. It's 5% increase. Plus, it depends on how good the market is. So, I just want to make sure that we start turning dirt. They need to know by December. I think that whether it's Hartwood or whether it's the addition, I think the 27, the 28, I don't think we get so wrapped up in that for this go-around. Maybe we just take the first 2 and say, hey, we stick with that. And then we discuss at length with the staff over the fall about, hey, do we, what do we really want to do with Hartwood? What do we really want to do with the 10 additions to the class? for Fredericksburg Christian or North Star or whatever we're calling it. You know, what are we going to do about making sure the South has those 10, maybe that money goes down to the South. For Gary Melchers, maybe it goes to Phase 2 and Ferry Farm. I don't know. But what I do know is I do support the first two still. I think those are solid. I think the Board of Supervisors already has that data over there, and they know that we support those first two. And I think the board, in the 50-meter target running at you right now is the Ferry Farm. How are we going to move forward with that? And we need to tell the board, the staff, to do something by December. And we only have one meeting in December. I think it's the 13th. And so I'm not saying that wouldn't be too late, but so I don't know if that's a poll of the board, or do we support paying additional money for the construction out of our own funding? That would be CIP infrastructure list. There's about $2 million that are unencumbered right now off that list. And if it's a infrastructure project such as an air conditioning system or a generator that we have to move for the art class or the music room or the art room, then that is CIP infrastructure money. That's something that we could have assigned that our last time we approved it. So that's kind of where I'm at. I think we can come up with a good portion of it on an 800,000, 600,000 of infrastructure, and then the rest we could. And we still have 2 years to pay that bill as well. I think Scott will correct me if I'm wrong. At least 21 is we'd have to give the money up for the rest of the final 20% of the project or whatever before opening. So we have a little bit of time, I think, on the rest of the money. So I know that was a long rambling of
Okay, so
information.
you want to know whether this board wants to go forward with the proposed renovation to Ferry Farm with the original
Yes.
plans at a cost of, what, 1.1 million?
1.8.
1.8 million more than was originally budgeted.
Yes.
And to find the money either from the infrastructure
Yes.
list, or I think Mr. Fulmer told us during our work session that there would be some money, not, a lot, but wasn't it 400,000+ from the state funds that came last year, and about 450 that we expect from this year, and carryover funds that is not committed. So that's another potential.
And we'd have two
revenue
infrastructure
source.
years, this year
Okay.
in June.
All right, so this is
also
unrelated
next
to this
year.
capital project list, but I think it is
If I could just
important.
clarify something for the public. It really, you're not asking for 1.9 million over what was budgeted. You're really staying at the budgeted number. The project
Right.
just
Right.
ended
Oh,
up
yes,
being.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I?
Yes, Dr. Chase.
Okay, so I have two questions. The first relates to this CIP that we've spent quite a bit of time sort of going through the process. So this question maybe is for Dr. Kisner or Mr. Haran. If we only need to send 2 projects across the street, why have we been looking at all these projects?
Well, let me just say, you already sent those 2 across the street.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
you made that decision.
Right.
At this point, if I could just be brutally honest, based on the email and everything I know, there is no sense of urgency to move anything across the street at this point.
Great,
So-
that's great,
Yeah,
that
that's-
answers my question.
yeah.
And then my second question is, I'm a little confused about Ferry Farm, because the original project, I thought we heard that there were teachers who had a problem with the way the library was designed. So I'm not quite sure what I'm agreeing to fund if we go with that previous, the previous plan. So I'm just
So that's
want
a good,
some clarity
so
for
that's a
that.
good question. So when we discussed it with the architects, there were some concerns that the board had. Ms. Healy and some, they said the art room, we don't want to build an art room and a music room on a permanent renovation that is under ed specs, because that was part of the deal. So they were going to look at that, and then the second thing they were going to look at is there a way to make the library in its originally, you know, that open library concept, can they close that up and make that a workable library, or do they have to go back? But either way, they were around the one, you know, it's around, do we want to fund around 1.8 for, this may save us money, or this may cost us more, but I can't say that. They're going back to the drawing board on just those three issues, but everything else was staying the same.
Mr. McCusker, if I could, I am willing to get more information, but I can tell you tonight, I don't know if I'm going to commit to 1.9, and I'm not trying to be, I don't like to not know what I'm kind of agreeing to. I am certainly willing to hear more information. I'd like to understand, like Dr. And my other concern always is when we say, here's how much you can spend, it will be spent. I don't want to lose some of our value of the creative, I don't want to stop our creative thinking to hit a number. Does that make any sense?
Makes sense to me.
I think that, but I'm willing to hear more and consider that, but I would certainly like to hear more from Mr. Fulmer as well, because we'll need to know where it comes from as well. I know you've talked about the 3R list. We have already approved that as a board. I think if you want to make changes to it, we would have to bring that back as well. And I'm not saying I'm opposed, I do think we need to,
Right.
Can we call the question on what we're,
Okay.
on the issue
yeah.
itself, and then we can maybe discuss having a work session on how we're going to pay for what he wants to have done, because these are two separate things, and we have to
Right.
have
Can I-
announcements and everything out to the
Well,
public
make a
about what we're
comment?
talking about.
Let me just say, I think what Mr. McCosker is asking for is, you know, what direction the board, you know, it looks like they want to move in, because by next month, if we're going to go forward with the contract, we're going to have a decision. Now, if we need to have a work session for that, we can schedule that, but it's going to have to be before the meeting. Perhaps we could have a special called meeting.
Okay.
But I think that's all he's trying to ask us to do. But it's not on the list, but the reason it's not on the list is because it had already been approved, and ironically, it was approved in the amount that we, you know, the project was approved, it's just that the bids came in higher.
Right, so we have to get together as a board and figure out how do we handle it, but that's not part of what we're voting on right now, right?
That's
Okay,
right.
so.
But it's,
I took this opportunity to,
I know, and I know it's late, but it is something that, you know, this has been going on for years
Right.
with dairy farms.
But we can't make that decision now without.
We can't even, yeah.
Well, but we can talk about, you know, tell us, Ms. Hazard says she wants more information. If we can tell the superintendent what information we want, then he can be prepared to have it for a work session. And then we can have a work session with a special called meeting and make a decision then. But I suggest that it be before the December 13th meeting, because I think that's going to be, or December 11th.
Because
It's
we
going to
had
be
that
too
meeting
late.
with the Board of Supervisors right before, so it would
Yeah.
have to be another day.
So
Well,
that's,
we might
or
not have
perhaps
that
people
meeting.
can send their questions.
Isn't that the oversight meeting?
Ms. Hazard, if
canceled.
you have any specific requests, as well as anybody else for information, send it to.
That meeting's
Dr.
canceled.
Could I just ask Mr. McCosker, Mr. McCosker, I know you said, and I tried to follow, but you know this project, like, we know our districts.
Right.
I know you said that you all had, and I watched you all, you had a great conversation going in there. For the uninitiated, I would love a breakdown of the conversation that was had by you all in there, because you were saying, well, we were kind of moving this stuff. I'm just a visual, I just need to kind of understand it.
That's
Does that
fair
make-
enough. Why don't we
does that
just
make
send an
sense?
Dr. Kisner, why don't you send an update of our way forward on the, you know, that's fine. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to talk about it, because if we just went to a poll and it went 3-4, and then we just move on, right? But I didn't want to do that. So, okay, let's just give us an update on with Mr. Haran and the VDMO, and on the costs and what we're going to do and what are the options, and then we'll just take it from there.
Do we want to have a special called meeting, and we could maybe agree on the date now, or we could?
Yeah, we're going to have a
Yeah.
work session to be followed by a special call
Yep.
meeting.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because that does have a sense of urgency. If we
Oh,
want to
yeah.
get the Ferry Farm to open up on the 20, a decision has to be made sooner
Right.
than later.
And they're good questions.
Can I give my comment
Yeah.
on 10:02? I mean, yep. So I am not going to meet on this again. I've met several times. I want us to vote. And
mean,
send
on
it
the
over.
CIP?
Yeah, on the CIP, yeah. And send it over because regardless if they accept it or not or whatever, they met already. This is our duty. And we met, and so we are sending it over. Period.
Call the question.
All right,
Call
the
the question.
there you got it. All right, all in favor of the motion to approve the FY20, FY29 CIP Large Project and Infrastructure Project Priorities, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
No?
Did you just say aye, say
I'm
aye?
not-
No, she said, are you saying, she said, are you saying aye? I said, yeah, I said
if
aye.
you're- All in favor of the motion, please say aye. All opposed?
No.
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 All right, Madam Clerk?
Dr. Chase?
Aye.
Ms. Decatur?
No.
Ms. Egan?
No.
Ms. Hazard?
No.
Ms. Healy?
Yes.
Mr. McCosker?
Yes.
Ms. Young?
Yes.
Madam Chair, motion passes 4-3.
No, it
All
wasn't.
right.
She said, did you say aye?
And we'll talk
I
at the
said
end of the
yes.
meeting about scheduling that work session and special call meeting. This brings us to information items, and I have a suggestion, unless there's anything that, well, if there's anything someone wants to move to action, we can, but on the other ones, well, one's been requested to go to action. And
I mean, Ms. Massey's been here all night.
Okay,
Yes, where's Ms.
yes, but
Massey?
other than that, if people have questions, we can just send them to the superintendent, because we do still have a closed session after this. So 11.01, approve an early Head Start expansion grant application for $381,575 in ongoing funding and $83,500 in startup costs to serve 20 additional infants, toddlers, and pregnant women. All right, any discussion of this item? Any discussion?
Ms. Massey? Ms. Massey, do we have space? That's going to be the question from me.
It was in the background material.
But I think it's important to have
It's
it.
proposed to be in the former Fredericksburg
For
Christian
former-
School.
Okay, this was discussed, I know, at ours and at Head Start, and I think this is important for
Sure.
it to be, we have room. and we have-
At this point, for the next couple of years, we do have room.
Yeah.
At the south, I was going to move one of the classrooms from the south campus to the north. Instead, we would replace that with this one, so that classroom would not move. If we need it for early childhood special ed in the future, then we could move this program to home base if we need that. But at this point, that classroom is not needed for early childhood special ed next year. Can you speak up, please? I'm so sorry. This classroom is not needed for early childhood special ed next year. There will be about 3 classrooms in the Melchers complex that will not be needed for ECSE next year.
Dr. Chase?
Yeah, so I'm just really confused. I have sat in so many meetings where I have been told that the Northern Head Start Center Early Childhood Special Ed Head Start Center was going to be full, and that we needed to put an addition on by, like, yesterday.
Yeah.
And so I'm really confused about this, I've got to say. I don't understand.
Any other, Ms. Young?
Yeah, so how long did you know that this is what you were planning on doing?
Very short time. The grant just came.
The grant was put in October, that was released, the RFP, whatever they call that. It was released October 29th, and it's due November 30th. Yeah, this is a great program, I think, to help teenagers to pursue a better life, but are we impacting our Head Start program that is going to be in the north? No, ma'am. Again, I was already planning on moving. We have 2 early Head Start classes at the Melcher site. I was planning on moving one of those north. This grant will allow us to put this classroom north, not move the other one, which classroom is not needed next year for early childhood special ed. So this grant will give us funds to not only put the classroom there, but to purchase playground equipment as startup cost. So I understand that is it the RASCB that lost their funding from the state? RASCB?
Raxby.
RASB? Community Services Board? Yeah? Yeah. Well, that's the document that you send us to read. It's in there.
That they stopped funding a program for teen pregnant, that was done back in 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, should we not be including, like, the board of supervisors to look at this? So in case, like, when this grant runs out, do we have to support it, like, every year after that? Or do you have to, like, re-up the grant? How does that?
Early Head Start is just like Head Start funding. We re-up it every year based on what the feds give us. If we lose that funding, then that's your decision what to do with that program. Yes,
Do you have
ma'am.
the teachers lined up for this?
Not until we get the grant. This, I need it approved by you guys first, and then it's a very competitive grant. So whether we get the funding or not is going to be up to the Office of Head Start based on our grant application.
So, I think you said something about students can transfer. Like, why would they transfer to, like, say, North Stafford? I'm assuming has been discussed with you, right, Dr. Kisner?
Right, so I know you know this.
To include the
These
redistricting
kids,
numbers or something?
the early Head Start kids are in our program 2 years, the Head Start kids are in our program 1 year. So the word transfer, I just want to make sure you understand, like, they graduate and they end up in kindergarten.
I'm talking about
She's talking about the high school students.
high school students.
Because
So
right
transfer
now,
in-
most of the high school students who are pregnant don't have transportation. And the hours of high school don't make it easy to get your child a Head Start
Question
unless
is,
you
are
have.
these numbers included in, are these numbers going to be included in the, say, for example, North Stafford, in addition to the ones that they already have? Like, say, 20, I don't know how many students we're talking about.
And neither do I until, people
So have
get
we taken
pregnant.
that
So
into
we don't know that at this
Right.
point. If North Stafford has room for transfers, then they could easily utilize North Stafford as their school right next door to this facility.
Okay, I have no more questions.
Any other?
I just have a
Mr.
question.
McOsker?
So we almost have $500,000 already budgeted in 19 for this program? Chris? Well, it says grant, but it says I'm counting $464,000 is already budgeted in FY19 in 020 for this program?
Early Head Start, we already have 2 classes. That's about a $480,000 grant, yes.
But it's grant money, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is not new money. This is already,
This would be expansion money added to what we already have. It would be coming from the feds. The local match is going to be utility costs that you're already paying that we are not using as local match. So there is no additional cost to the board for this grant.
okay, so what you're saying is there's no extra money, we don't have any local match. And if it is, because it says the required local match of 76,000. So up top on here, on this says amount budgeted, it's already, but that is not for this program, that is for another, that is not for the requested agenda item. So $464,000 is not for the requested agenda item? Why would it be there if it's not for the requested agenda item?
Where do you see 460?
Well, I'm adding 381.75, and then
And then the
83,000, and then 83,500.
Oh, yes, sir.
And then it's for a total of 464, so I'm just trying, it's confusing me, so it's saying it's budgeted for $464,000
For FY19.
for FY19, and then you're asking, that's what we need to do, so what is
It
this?
is not already budgeted, no, sir.
This is an error.
That should have been, it should say no.
So the
It should
budget,
say no.
should say no.
It should say no, but I think the thing I checked was there a local budget funds, and the answer is no.
Okay, I'm gonna defer to Ms. Hazard on this, as I'm really, really confused.
I think.
So I'm gonna
think my
be voting
comment-
no on this if
Right.
we're trying to go to.
I think my comment is this allows us to apply for it. If we get these grant funds, it can come back to the board for us to say, yes, we want them Head Start, or no, we don't. But the answer will be, no, we don't get any additional funds if we don't apply. And it
Is
seems
that
like it's an
true?
opportunity.
I think some of these grants, if you apply, you have to do it. So I just want to make sure that
Okay, I guess I
that
don't
is the
know.
case. There are some of these
Mhm.
grants that if you apply, you have to.
And so
I think when you're making the application, you're saying, yes, you want to.
And the second thing, just to finish off my thought, was, and I do agree with Ms. Young, I'm just a little confused on, we said that we were going to have 20 early childhood special education classrooms filled because we needed them, and so the Board of Supervisors funded us $10 million, and, we got to do it now. And oh, by the way, last year with Dr. Benson, now we needed another 10 million to, another 10 classes, or 6 million. So that's the second part of my confusion and my frustration.
All right, so
I don't understand.
Let me take a stab at it. If there are children with a disability older than age 2 and under age 5, there is no waiting list. All right? By law, we are serving them today, okay? We could be serving them center-based, we could be serving them home-based, but we are serving them. I don't know the conversations that happened last year. Maybe the conversations, I'm just speculating now, were about other early childhood children without a disability. So I just want to clarify, because I know we have talked about, I've heard that we have waiting lists for other children that do not have special needs. And then there is some, I'll just say again, speculation, that when we open up the North Campus, there's a high probability that families that did not want to bring their children to the South Campus are now going to be interested. So I know Stafford, we just got our special ed evaluation. We did extremely well. We were not criticized for not serving early childhood special ed students. So I don't know how anybody could have projected that you were going to have a waiting list for children with disabilities, because we don't identify those children until age 2 or 3, depending on the agency that's doing it. So I'm just saying, I just want to make sure everybody who's listening, if you have a disability and you have a child with a disability, we are currently serving you. There is no waiting list for those children.
I guess my concern is, my understanding was that early childhood special education is, the students who qualify for that is a growing population, and that it is continuing to grow. And my understanding from those meetings that were before you got here were that because that was growing, we needed to have more space. And Mr. Haran informed us that the addition that was proposed to put 10 classrooms at the North Star, or whatever we're calling it, will cost $590,000 a classroom. And so that's quite an expensive set of classrooms to hand it over to something that we're not required by law to provide. So I just have some concerns about that, and some confusion, because I was under the impression that it was going to be full when it opened. And so I'm just, I don't think I'm going to be able to support this because of that confusion that I have.
And Dr. Chase, to answer your question, the North Campus is going to be full when we open it, whether we move our early Head Start classroom from the South North or whether we fill it with this one. For next year, we have 3 classrooms in the South that will be open that will not be needed for early childhood special ed based on their predictions right now. One of those could stay our early Head Start classroom down there. If the next year that classroom is needed, these students, we can apply to the federal government to move them to a home-based program that are inter-center based. So we could, do that. There's several options. We could turn the money back in a year's time and say we can't do this anymore. There are all kinds of options, but in the meantime, we're going to have an empty classroom or 2 or 3 at the Melchers Complex sitting empty, and this would give us a way to add a playground to the north for the younger children in early childhood special ed as well as
And
Head
what if
Start.
your predictions are wrong?
If they need all 3 classrooms, then we'll apply to move it to center base, to home base.
Well, I share Dr. Chase's confusion because I remember on many more than one occasions, this board was told that we will every year need more classroom space for the special ed preschool. That, and I see a shake of the head over here, that it is growing. There is nothing that would stop that need. I also recall being told, and I may be mistaken here, but that when we open the North Campus, then it would be full, and then it was going to be half Head Start and half early special ed. Now, when the naming committee had its meeting, for the first time, I heard, oh no, there's only going to be 9 Head Start and 10 early childhood special ed, and we're just going to have an empty classroom because, and I'm sure Mr. Haran will remember, you may remember, I questioned that because I said, why isn't it going to be full like we've been telling everybody it's going to be full? Well, I have to ask, when did we know about this grant and all of a sudden we happen to have an empty classroom that we can, fill with this space? I mean, if we didn't know anything about the grant until October 29th, that's the first time we ever heard of it. So,
Well, we knew that the funding was coming, it's just it hadn't been released yet. The Congress had appropriated funding for early Head Start expansion back last year, and we were just waiting for the RFP to come out. But we didn't know whether we would qualify for it, whether it would be home-based services allowed, center-based, what it would be allowed, and that kind of thing.
that explains, I mean, I
again,
was shocked to hear we were going to open not full when all my
We
recollection was we were going to be full.
I'm not aware that we're going to have less than 12 early childhood
No, I'm
special.
not, I'm just making a comment here. This is something that I didn't understand, and I think I raised it to Dr. Kisner as well. I thought we were going to open full. That's what I've been telling people. That's what I think this board has been telling people. And then all of a sudden, we find out we're not going to be full. And now it's like, well, we can be full, but we're going to have a program that is not a mandated program, while we know we're going to have an increase in need for the special ed preschool. I'm reluctant to start a program, beginning at the infant level, that we're not going to be able to follow through on. So, I understand these children infants are eligible for up to 5 years. So that's my concern.
I just don't want there to be any misinformation that the North Campus is going to open totally full with 12 early childhood special ed classes and 8 Head Start and 1 early Head Start. There are 21 classrooms up there.
Okay, that's not what I remember from the naming committee meeting, because I remember questioning Mr. Rand, so maybe those numbers have changed since then. Okay, is that what you said during the naming committee? Perhaps I misunderstood, because I was told there was going to be 9 Head Start and 10 early childhood special ed, and that we would have the 2 extra classrooms. I knew we were going to have 1, but there would be 2 empty classrooms. So and I immediately asked Dr. Kisner about it.
If I could just add one thing, going to the grants, okay? I just want to make the statement, then I'll try to be quiet. These are children that are high at risk. They will be in our schools most likely when they turn age 5 in kindergarten. You will spend a lot more money at that time if we don't provide early services. The research is compelling on this. So if we could just go back to what the grant is, and each year you have the option to say, no, it's a 1-year agreement, and you have to get, it has to renew. So I just want to make that point, because I don't want to lose sight of that we may not, this grant I know is very competitive. Okay, if we get it, I applaud the grant writers. But there's a lot of communities. I think I told you my letter. I was at the early childhood meeting last week, the task force, and there's many communities going for this grant. This I will tell you, we do have more and more children. 60% of entering kindergarten children statewide have been determined not to be ready for kindergarten. Okay, and a high probability. It increases greatly for children who are born to young mothers and other categories. So this is why we're writing the grant, okay? I understand the space issue. We are sharing with you, regardless of what was said in the past, on the South Campus, there will be a classroom next year, if we get this grant, okay? And that's the only thing that she's asking, is permission to move forward.
But the grant says the classroom's going in the north.
Right, so we won't move the south classroom north. This grant will go north. The south classroom will stay in that room that's available next year. Again, if we need that classroom for early childhood special ed the year after, or the year after that, or the year after that, we can always move these children to home-based services.
So, one more question. Did you say you're advertising in the Freelance Star?
Am I advertising in the freelance?
Freelance Star for the list for where you're gonna get the teenage mothers. I read that there are several places, but including the Freelance Star.
Yes, ma'am.
They're gonna find this information in the Freelance Star.
They will find Head Start information, registration information there.
So one of my questions and my concern has always been where we are finding the mothers and the individuals. But I did see some information about social services and things of that nature where these teenage mothers are coming from, and the ones that are homeless. So that's good, but I don't know if some mothers are looking in the Freelance Star.
No.
think you
And
have to put it
honestly, our pregnant teens, we mostly get from the school nurses and from the counselors.
They're trying to find the next meal. I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
Most of our teen mothers that we get referred are from counselors or school nurses
Counselors and school nurses.
at the high schools and middle schools.
So just back to the budgeted though, so is that wrong? So we need to
Yes.
cross all, that should all be zeros, right? Under budgeted?
It's not requiring, I put a no for requiring local funds. I don't know why it
Yeah,
popped
it
up
says
that
a-
way. It should be no. They're not budgeted funds.
Okay,
But
so
the
that's,
local match is, I think that
The
was
local
meant to
match is
show-
already budgeted. It would not be
That's a-
extra.
I think that's what that was meant to show, is right now in the budget is the 300, whatever that number is, and then the local match of the 83.5 are already funded, so.
No, no, they're not. The startup funding we would get this year to put in the playground and those things. And then the class would start with the next school year, which would be the 381,000.
Okay. Yeah,
Does that
that is confusing,
clarify?
and I'm sorry, since
This is
since
wrong.
this didn't
This is
come to,
wrong.
since this didn't come to Head Start, because
Yeah.
you all didn't know it till after the Head Start Policy Council meeting, I'm sorry, I usually would know much more about this agenda item, but it did not come up at the
The
last one.
agenda
so-
item is incorrect where it says that the $381,575 is budgeted. It says yes, you're saying no. I
No.
understand.
What is budgeted is the local match.
Okay, that makes sense. I think because of the timeliness, whether we vote it up or down, we have to give some indication. So I would actually ask the board to consider moving this to action as the first motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to move this to action. All in favor, say aye.
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 Oops,
All opposed? Oh, why not? It's only 10 after 10. We've got a lot more to do tonight.
I was going to go ahead and make a motion to approve.
I don't object to moving it to action.
Action, right.
All right,
So,
all in
I mean, I
favor of
figured that
moving
we
to
need to
action? Say, okay.
Moving
that
to
was
action,
unanimous.
right?
Moving to
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, all right, so do we have a motion?
Then I'll go ahead and ask that the approval of the Early Head Start Expansion Grant application.
Second.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. No discussion, right? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No.
Dr. Chase?
Aye.
Ms. Decatur?
Aye.
Ms. Egan?
Aye.
Ms. Hazard?
Aye.
Ms. Healy?
No.
Mr. McCosker? Ms. Young?
Aye.
Madam Chair, motion passes 5-2.
All right, that brings us to 11.02, approve the renewal of an annual maintenance and support contract with EduPoint Educational Systems for the Synergy Student Information System, an amount of $208,878 from budgeted FY19 funds.
Move that we approve.
Is this, this
That's
is
information
information?
item.
Then I don't move that we approve.
Okay, if anybody has any
anybody-
questions,
yeah, if
unless
anybody
they're
has
burning,
anything.
send them to Dr. Kisner. All right, 11.03, approve the award of a service contract to Corbett Technology Solutions, Inc. of Mechanicsville, Virginia, in the amount of $200,290, using budgeted FY19 operating funds for the installation of emergency notification strobe lights in all school cafeterias. Any?
I do have a question on this because the
want-
attachment.
Okay.
Well, I think that the board should look
at
at this.
And you
Okay.
can get us the answer, or we can discuss it if you want.
All I just wanted to say is the priority that is attached to this agenda item, I just want to make sure, I wanted to check with Mr. Horan, number 4 and number 5 are being combined. Is that phase 1 and phase 2 of this project? I just want to understand, because I know it's in priority order. Have we done 1, 2, and 3?
Yes, ma'am. It was a mistake on my part to not include an updated attachment that gave you the current status.
That's what I wanted.
So I apologize for that. But the current status of the priorities before that are underway. One's been funded. It was within the superintendent's authority to fund. The second, we're getting pricing on. The third, we're also getting pricing on. We plan to bring that to the school board with the superintendent's approval. And then priority 4 has been combined with priority 5. It's together, and that's what we have today. We had that price ready to go, so we felt it prudent to bring to the board for consideration. But I'll have that updated attachment to you next time you consider this.
Can you actually send that ahead of time? It may answer
Absolutely.
the question that I would be
Yes,
sending,
ma'am,
which
I
I
can.
think you know what it is. So.
Yes, ma'am.
If anybody has any more questions, send them to Dr. Kisner. He'll share the answers with all of us. All right, next item, 11.04, approve North Star Early Childhood Center as the name of the new early childhood special education / Head Start North
She has
Campus,
a long drive home.
formerly the Fredericksburg Christian School. Now, keep in mind, we have not yet acquired this school, but we hope to acquire this school at the end of the month.
There is a date, right? Almost.
Yes, the end of the month. All right, this is on for information.
Is it on for information?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, all right.
All right, anybody have any questions? Send them to Dr. Kisner. Want to thank Ms. Young for participating on that
Yeah, thank you.
naming committee.
Right, I just want to, oh, go ahead.
You go ahead, maybe you'll answer my question.
No, not really, this is something else.
Okay, of all of the people on the thing, I'm curious to know, like, what the split was between the first choice of North Star and the second choice of Palmer Hayden Early Childhood Center, because
One. It was
One.
one person.
Okay.
The historian brought it to our attention, and we went over it, and, yeah, everybody liked the North Star, but what came up was, though, that they wanted to, I think we need to appoint a committee to consider updating the name to the south location, because several names came up, including Palmer Hayden. But we recognized when naming the north location that there needs to be a need for a committee to represent the south. So I wasn't sure if some of the board members that are from the south wanted to participate in that committee. You know, Dr. Chase and Holly.
Either way.
Holly Hazard. Oh, you're not from the south?
No.
Okay, yeah. So, but, yeah, and I guess the name that came out, 5-1, I think. How many people were there?
I'm not
6?
even sure there was a vote. I think it was fairly unanimous.
Unanimous that
The
it-
Historical
that-
Society
North Star.
representative liked.
Even liked it.
Hayden Palmer, and but she also liked
North Star,
as
so-
well. And part of the discussion, to follow up on Ms. Young's comments, the discussion centered around the fact that the Melchers Complex houses a number of facilities and different programs, and that the early childhood and the Head Start may want to have their own identity and their own name. So we can maybe
Yeah.
put that on the agenda for the
Yeah.
next month
Can
when
we?
this comes
Yeah.
back to us, okay? All right, 11.05, approve the superintendent's proposed revisions to policies and regulations as reviewed by the Associate Superintendent of Instructional Services.
So
Anybody-
can we not move this to action? Like, why do we have
Well,
to?
under our policy, it comes
Okay.
for information twice, and then
Sorry.
it comes for action.
Sorry.
And Dr. Parrish isn't here this evening anyway, so send your questions to Dr. Kisner.
We are all trained by now to send the questions to Dr. Kisner.
Right, but I feel it prudent for me to repeat that on a broken record. All right, the next regular meeting of the school board is December 11th at 2018 at 7 PM. However, we do have the meeting before that with the supervisors, correct, Missy? Oh. So many. Well, these are advisory.
Was that canceled, that advisory committee, though?
Where is?
The joint,
I don't see it. This is.
We had the
oh,
8th and
December 11th. Go to the
10th
next
meetings.
page. Joint work session, school board,
Oh.
board of supervisors, okay.
Okay, and that's at 5 o'clock. Now,
So-
we do need to have FOIA training.
Talk to Dr. Kisner about FOIA training.
I'm sorry.
brief
this
him.
is
Go ahead and
just-
brief him.
No, this is just ironic. We need to have FOIA training. Well, no, we need to talk about FOIA training, so if you all would come back so we could talk about it, I think that would be helpful.
Who all is here? Irene
Well, we
left.
have Irene.
I think
Did
everybody
Irene
else
leave?
is
a while
Irene
back.
leave? Oh,
Irene's gone.
she's gone?
Yeah, she's
Yeah, a while
gone.
back.
All right, Ms. Hazard, is she coming back?
Yeah, she has to, her calculator's here.
Well, actually, we're gonna need 3 for Ferry Farm. too.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, I thought you were.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, sorry.
All right, can someone buzz Ms. Hazard and ask her to come back?
Miss Hazard, Miss Hazard.
Please come to the front of the, please come to the front of the plane.
I don't know.
All right, let's start our discussions. If she disagrees, we'll.
Well, no, we're talking about FOIA training for the board. And this is coming because we received a complaint that there may have been a violation of FOIA. And in response, we're going to have FOIA training for the board. And Dr. Kisner has worked with a presenter who is willing to come and give us 2 hours of FOIA training and also to discuss roles and responsibilities of the school board, if you want to extend it to that.
I'm sorry, why am I being punished? I did not. Why am I being punished with FOIA training?
You're being enriched.
Okay.
all being punished
Yeah,
Hey,
I didn't do
I
anything.
know, I've been through it several times. I know the rules,
All
okay?
right, so if you notice, there's big yeses by my name, so I'm good to go.
What was it, did you pick a date? I'm sorry.
December 10th, we were looking, no. Is December 10th a Monday?
December 10th is what you.
All right, you
Yeah,
can
is that a
please-
Monday? Okay, I didn't know that was Monday.
If we look at December, Monday the 10th,
You're good,
Yeah.
Mr. Cater.
December 10th, he
You already
could.
got yeses and noses in.
yeah.
We have a lot of yeses, only one no, Miss Young.
All right.
But I know you could be
well,
here.
We
You're playing
can
hard to
give her
get.
the memo,
Okay, cool.
if you don't mind missing it.
I just put some no's because I need some no's. I can't be like Dr.
All right.
Chase,
Well-
that yes all across
Well,
the whole thing.
Can we just agree on December 10th, because that's,
I'll try. Okay. I'll
That's
try
when
to
the
be here,
presenter-
10.
Yeah,
I'll-
yep.
I'll try
At
to-
5
so-
o'clock, December 10th,
Yep.
what time,
Thank
5 o'clock?
you.
5 to 7.
5 to 7.
Yeah.
We will be providing food if we're at 5 o'clock.
Oh, food? Okay, I'll be here.
What is the day of the week of January
crack
12th,
me up.
please?
January 12th?
Yeah, I'm
That
already
was-
on the next one.
Those are all Saturdays.
Oh, they're all Saturdays.
That's,
Thanks.
that's for the retreat. Well, we still need to have 2 other work sessions, and if we want to do a marathon, we can combine the,
Why can't we
the
do
one
2?
on the 3 program reviews and our policies with Ferry Farms. But if, we're going to have to do Ferry Farms sometime before the 11th.
The only person that needs to be in Ferry Farm is Dwayne.
All right, let's be serious.
Okay,
Where,
sorry. Sure.
Well, what about on the 10th from
December
7 to
4th?
8? I mean, compared to tonight, that's going to be a short night,
December the 8th?
5 to 8. What about that? If we're all here already?
that works for me.
Yep.
5 to 8.
Well, we may not need that much time, but we can schedule it for that. If we finish early, then we'll get an early out.
So we do Ferry Farm from 7 to 8?
Yeah, on the 10th. I mean, it's not much before the 11th, but I think,
Yeah.
would that give us enough time
Yeah.
to go forward with the plans for the contract?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, so, all right, check off Ferry Farm, check off FOIA training. That leaves us with the 3 program reviews and our
Is
policies.
that on the 8th or the 10th?
Do you want that to
Can we
be
do
in
that all
December?
on the Saturday
Which one?
after?
For you? The-
No, the 3 program reviews, the AP,
Yeah, whenever it's
IB
convenient for
and
everyone, and if I
APPX.
have to switch
In
my.
the past, if you wanted to focus on those program reviews with nothing else.
Correct.
Well, we wanted to do that, but we have holidays coming up and our schedules are getting full. But if anybody wants to pick a date, I see the 12th, but that would give us 3 days in a row.
That's not
That's a lot of
Saturdays?
togetherness.
That's a lot of love.
This is a good thing for togetherness. I mean, we bond.
Not
The
doing
12th, the 12th is not great for me, so I'm not trying to be difficult, but that 12th, I did put possible, but that's gonna be
Well, I see a well, let's see.
I mean, if you have to, we can, I may not be there the whole time, though. I have
If somebody wants to
Charlie
do
has
it
a
the
work
week before
commitment.
Christmas, we've got,
Holly will be studied up anyway.
How about like earlier? How about,
December 4th,
December 4th?
5th.
You know, the
Oh,
6th,
that means, okay, I will have to do it again.
Ms. Healy,
Miss Pam is
the
a no, I
6th
can
is
do it
now an
if I have to.
option because the legislative reception that was
I
going
was,
to be.
I was
on
gonna
the
make that
23rd.
comment as well.
I will do the yes on December 4th.
When does that meeting change from?
Thursdays are good happy hour. Which is the same night as the joint.
6 is
Oh,
blocked.
God.
No, but
We're
that's-
really gonna
that's
get to know each
rescheduled.
other in December.
Yeah, but nobody said anything about the 6th yet.
All right, 4th or 6th?
I don't care.
Let's do this.
Does anybody care?
It's Taco Tuesday or Happy Hour Thursday, so.
I'll do the 4th and then
All
I'll
right,
just
Ms.
come.
Young said she can do the 4th, so the 4th.
I will just
The 4th will
change
be the three
again.
program reviews and our policies. All right, then that brings us to the team building retreat.
On the 4th, what time?
Stab me now.
Not- Why don't we say 5:30, because it's harder for people to come at 5.
Ridiculous.
That works for 5:30,
2 hours or?
It's a party.
an hour and a half,
We have an agenda review.
well, right before
Hey
this.
guys,
probably.
Tuesday, December 4th is the Board of Supervisors holiday party. I don't
But
know
it's
if you
7 to
noticed that.
9.
What time is it? 7? Well, we're gonna meet at 5:30 to.
We'll be done. You just
7.
come in dressed up. Or not.
So the 4th at 5:30?
I'm sorry,
I mean, we
have
can
to
change
take
it to
your
6.
water.
It really doesn't matter to me.
I don't care. I was just.
Let's just leave it at the 4th.
I know, I was just
It's
thinking, we
fine.
did just get that invitation. I knew that date sounded
Yeah.
familiar.
All right.
Y'all want some pillows out there?
And for the Saturday, I'm good for the 12th, if everyone else is.
Why y'all still here?
Except for we keep picking days that,
I'm sorry.
You gotta know
Why are they
here.
here? Do we need them? Why are we not
Well,
sending them
because
home?
they enjoy our meetings. We're so
Why are we not sending
entertaining,
them
right?
home?
Well, you know what, I'm glad you said that. Lisa and Pam will stay, but all of you rest of you, seriously, go
Please,
home.
good night.
Yeah, because they're gonna join us in closed session, that's why.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, guys.
good night, guys.
Come in 10 minutes later
Thanks for your
tomorrow.
patience.
I'm the nice.
Pammy Pam, sorry.
Such a good boss.
She's gotta stay.
No, I'm the
Oh,
boss.
you gave him 10
Can,
minutes?
can you come
I
on
run
the
Dr.
12th?
Kisner.
Can you come on the 12th?
So, okay, fine.
All right, so January 12th. Ms. Young's gonna make it.
Jesus.
You need to have food for her.
8 to noon, 9 to 1.
But they can vote on this.
What are we doing during the retreat again?
Team
Make
building.
it from 8 to
If
9.
we're still speaking to each other after all those meetings in December.
Let's team build for
What
40
was the
minutes.
time we picked? I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
8 or 9.
8 to what?
8 or 9 in the morning. Yeah, I agree.
9.
9.
9.
9 to.
What, 9 to whenever we need to go.
Are you providing lunch?
I'm with her, Kelly, on Thursday. I'll reinforce.
I'll stay till
Good
1.
night, Scott. Say thank you. Say
All
thank you,
right,
Scott.
all right. Well, thank you all.
Scott, say thank you.
So now we need to read into closed session, Mr. McOsker.
I totally didn't get it.
I move that the Stafford County School Board convene a closed meeting to discuss or consider a personnel matter pursuant to the personal exemption in section 2.2-37A1 Code of Virginia. Second, please.
Second.
Thanks.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Go.
And then, Miss,
Miss
we
E.
need to reflect that Miss
Missy,
Egan
please put 'em on our
did not
calendar.
vote. Okay,
Put them on my calendars because I have to like move things around. I appreciate you.
all right. All right, we are now in closed session for a short meeting.